Will, do you want me to read the
Public
disclaimer
disclaimer.
first?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, I do.
Okay. Notice of the March 13th, 2019 meeting of the Real Estate Commission, including date, time, and location, has been noticed on the Tennessee Real Estate website since September 18th, 2018. Additionally, this month's agenda has been posted on the website since Friday, March 8th, 2019.
Now, would you mind calling the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Jeff Diaz. Commissioner Rick Douglas.
Here.
Commissioner Marcia Franks.
Here.
Commissioner Diane Hills.
Here.
Commissioner Austin McMullen.
Here.
Commissioner Fontaine Taylor.
Here.
Commissioner Bobby Wood.
Here.
Chairman John Grease.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. At this point, if you all would pay attention for a second, Commissioner Rick Douglas will lead us in an invocation and then stand and we'll pledge to the flag. Mr. Douglas.
Pray. Father, thank you so much, Lord, for allowing us the privilege to serve our great state, Lord, in the capacity as commissioners. And Father, as we serve our citizens, Lord, help us to be fair and impartial, and give us the wisdom that we need, Lord, to make critical decisions that impact the lives of members of our state, Lord. Father, we just ask you, Lord, to guide us as we conduct our meeting today, and Lord, give us safe travel home. And we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Rick. All right, next up is to approve today's agenda. Are there items commissioners would like to take off the agenda that was presented or add to that agenda?
What I would like to do and what I will do may be two different things.
Would you like to reduce the agenda down to nothing? Let's put under commission discussion October meeting, just to talk about that for a second. Anything else? If not, is there a motion to approve today's agenda?
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Ms. Frank, seconded by Ms. Taylor, third by Mr. McMullen. Those in favor of that motion vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. Next up is to approve last month's meeting minutes. Since you received those minutes, I have asked Caitlin and legal to include in the minutes the recommendation legal made or interpretation legal made about this flipping notion, for lack of a better term. Like if you type a piece of property with an option, during that option, can you try to sell it before you close? I'd like for you all to take a look at that particular paragraph. I don't think it's anywhere but on the iPad. Is that right? So if you'd go to your iPad.
On page 3, I believe,
But,
of the minutes.
Option to buy.
what's it? What do we have it under?
Right.
But what's it under here?
Minutes.
It'll be on your iPad.
If you go to page 3 of that document, at the bottom of page 3, it says option to buy. Please take a couple of minutes and read through that. Make sure you understand it. Kelsey has come down in case you have any questions about that.
What I'm doing.
All right. Everybody okay with that language? Kelsey, I have one question for you, if you don't mind. You can just go to wherever you're comfortable.
come here.
That's perfect. So conceptually, what we're talking about is somebody who ties up a piece of property with an option, and during that period of time tries to sell it to somebody else before he or she owns it.
Yes.
And is your interpretation, or does this state that you have to have a license to do that, or are you saying no one can do that because they don't have title or interest in the property?
My position is that you need a license to do that.
Oh, if I want to do it because I'm licensed, I can do it.
Yes, absolutely.
But if I'm an individual without a license,
Then you need to get one,
or you can't do it,
or you can't do it.
or if you do it, you're practicing real estate without a license.
Yes.
That's what this paragraph says.
But
Yes.
just to be clear, if I own the option, I can sell the option without having a license because I personally own the option.
Yes. As far as I am aware, that situation would be permissible.
What if an LLC owned the option?
Now we're getting into
So it's a person
Into the
for their
weeds.
own purchase.
that's as far as I'm comfortable
Okay.
giving an opinion. Yeah.
So I wanted this language to be in the minutes because I hear all the time about people tying up property and trying to sell it, some with licenses and some without. And in the future, if you get inquiries based on legal's interpretation, which you can reference in the February minutes if this is approved, you got to have a license before you can do that.
Can that clarification also be?
Well, I think
in here?
I think that's what it says. I mean, that's what you're telling me this
Well,
paragraph
and-
says, right?
Yes.
It's hard to get to it, to me.
If you'd like to amend this, absolutely.
I would like for it to be a little clearer. For instance, the sentence, if you have a license, you can do it, and if you don't, you can't. Or
Like to amend this?
something like that, right. I would like to amend that
Okay,
to
so-
include language similar to that, clarification.
Like a last sentence that says, in
Right.
other words,
Right.
if you have a license, you can do this.
Right. And if
As
you
an
don't-
individual.
Yes,
If you don't,
You
you can't.
right. That's right.
Would you like me to type something up and send it to Caitlin?
I think the intent is what Fontaine wants for you to put in there.
Okay. Okay.
So we deal with licensees and individuals sometimes that can't read stuff that has TCA included in the language. So I
That's
think
fair.
I think the language is as Fontaine asked for. In other words, if you have a real estate license, you can do this. If you don't, you can't.
Sure.
That,
Can
okay.
do that.
So I've added that to the minutes. I just want to make sure everybody's okay with that before we go forward. Ms. Franks.
I had a question about on page 3 at the top, the second paragraph,
This is, thank you. Okay.
where it says, do y'all see where I'm talking about, the second paragraph? And it says, further discussion on correspondence courses and possible rulemaking were deferred. And I think then after that, we made an action. So we did defer to talk about what we're going to talk about in April. Is that correct, Anna?
Yes.
Okay.
Although we're getting an update
So-
today.
Okay, so that's correct then, that it was deferred. But in addition, then there was a motion. Okay.
All right, other discussion about the minutes. By the way, you can find all our minutes on the website. I didn't know where to find them, but Caitlin told me where to look, and they're there.
So let me ask you one thing, too, before we go ahead. Since the minutes have been corrected, to have that sentence on my printed material, since
So if you approve the minutes as amended, then we will get them posted onto the website.
All right, is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Ms. Frank, seconded by Ms. Hills. Is there further discussion on last month's minutes? We're not talking about the special meeting minutes at this point, just last month's minutes. If not, let's vote. Those in favor of approving those minutes, please vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. That motion passes. You also have received minutes from a special meeting that was held telephonically. Is that the right word? Is there a motion or discussion on those minutes?
I have one correction.
Yes, sir.
In the paragraph near the bottom that says Commissioner Fontaine Taylor raised concern that D&D School was not following TCA Section 6213, 325D 3 and 4. That should be B 3 and 4.
Look at you.
But with that correction, I would move to approve the minutes.
The other question I had, though, is nowhere in the heading of this does it say the minutes. It does in the wording down here, but I was thinking in the header it should be there, so it wouldn't be lost in anywhere. Shouldn't that be at the top, minutes of the emergency meeting?
We can get that handled.
Okay.
All right, with those corrections or additions, let's say, is there other discussion? If not, is there a motion to approve those minutes as amended?
He did.
And then a second.
Thank you. Mr. McMullen makes that motion, and is seconded by Ms. Hills. Further discussion? Those in favor of that motion vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. All right. Next up, we have two informal appearances. Is Ms. Holt here? Lindsay Holt? Okay, thank you. Crystal Borchardt? Thank you. Glad to have you both here. Here's how this works. So we're going to ask you, each of you, to come up with your broker, and you can have a seat over in one of these two chairs here. Before you sit down, Ms. Matlock, who represents the legal department with the Department of Commerce and Insurance, will ask you if you'll tell the truth or not. Okay? In the meantime, Ms. Maxwell, our executive director, will give us a quick background of what caused you to be here. Once that's done, we're going to go to Ms. Holt and Crystal Borch. How do you say your last name? Borchardt. Okay, thank you. We'll ask each of you in your turn to tell us your version of what happened and what you'd like for us to know about how it happened, what you've been doing since. Anything you want us to know about your situation would be appreciated. Commission, once you're finished, will ask you questions if they want to. And when that's done, we'll go to your broker and say, why do you want this applicant to be affiliated with your firm? The broker will get to tell us what they know about you. Commission, again, will reserve the right to ask questions to either the broker or the applicant, and eventually we'll get around to voting on a motion which will be something like to let you go forward in your real estate career or not. So that's kind of how this works. And let's start off with Lindsay Holt. If you'll come forward with your broker. And I'm sorry, sir, I don't know your name. You two may have a seat. Ms. Maxwell.
Before you, you have applicant Lindsay Holt and her principal broker, Benjamin Hurd. Ms. Holt has taken the Tennessee Real Estate Affiliate Broker exam. Her principal broker, Benjamin Hurd, was first licensed in January of 2016 as a broker. First licensed as an affiliate, our records indicate February 2012. There's no disciplinary sanctions on the firm. The firm is Hurd Realty, LLC. So the summary of criminal and disciplinary sanction, felony conspiracy to manufacture methamphetamine, October 2012. The disposition of the charge has been satisfied, and Ms. Holt's statement can be found on your iPads along with the letter recommendation.
All right, Ms. Holt, if you'll speak into that microphone, you can tell us about the event, how it occurred, what you've done since, anything you'd like for us to know at this point.
I pretty much, when I was 18, I got mixed in with bad people, and I was addicted to meth, and I got in trouble, and I went to prison, and I've done a 500-hour drug rehab program, and I did 6 months in the halfway house. I've done 100 hours of community service, and then probation, and I've never failed a drug test. I've been sober for 7 years this month. I'm married now, and I have a little girl. She's 2, and I've just been working hard to be a better person, and I'm 26 now. I was 18 then, and I've changed my life completely. So,
Commissioners?
Why do you want to be a real estate agent?
well, I want to actually have a career where I can make money and be part of the community. I don't just want to settle for just any job. I want to be somebody, pretty much.
And so what got you interested in real estate?
Well, my husband's family, his mother was a realtor, and I just enjoy real estate and things like that, and just the potential to be more than what I am.
And so what kind of real estate will you be practicing?
Sorry, the word just left my head. Residential. Yeah.
What kind of work have you been doing prior to now?
I've worked at some fast food restaurants, and then I worked at a hotel, and I came home when I was pregnant and had my daughter, and I've been home with her. She's just turned 2 in November, so I've been home with her.
You've been doing hard work for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Bills?
In your statement that you submitted to us, it said federal case of conspiracy.
It's where there was a bunch of people, and it's just knowing what was going on and not reporting it, pretty much.
You're not on probation now. Have you
No.
been? How long have you been off? Probation?
I got off probation 2 years in this July. I had 4 years, and I got off early for doing everything correctly, and then I also did an extra, it took a year, a class to get off probation early.
When you did community service, what type of service did you do?
I did things at the food bank. There's a big one where we live, and I would package food and things like that. And then I also worked at the Good Samaritan, like making, I made Easter baskets for like low-income children and putting clothes and things out for people like low-income families.
Did that make a difference in your life?
I feel like it did. Before I was a very selfish person, and I only cared for myself. And I went to prison, and that changed my mindset completely. But doing the community service also showed me that how blessed I am, and that I shouldn't take those things for granted.
Other questions for Ms. Holt? All right, Mr. Hunt, would you tell us what's hurt? I can't get Rebone right. H-U-R-D. How do you say it?
H-U-R-D.
H-U-R-D. My fault. Would you tell us what caused you to think this might be a good fit for your company?
Well, besides being a broker, I'm a pastor. And so, like the position you guys sit in, you can either take the law that's already been applied to her and basically keep restricting it, or you can show mercy. You know, I've known her since she was a child. That's the reason I'm backing her. We'll never know what she could have been if she wouldn't have chose maybe one of the wrong paths. But she used to come and spend the night with my daughter with all the other girls. I've got a daughter at her age, and they, you know how girls are. We used to have 15 of them over at one time. She was a star ball player. I mean, she could easily got a full scholarship. She was very smart, made straight A's. She really did, like a lot of, especially as a pastor, I see a lot of young people, especially girls that can be easily influenced, make one wrong choice, and it ends up, like her, costing her several years. And so, but I know her family. Many of you probably know her mother-in-law, Tina Holt, but she's got a really good family. She's got her husband's a really good family, and she's got the cutest little girl. But you can't get to know her in 2 minutes in here, but we've known her since she was a child. And so, but after she's paid for her mistakes, I mean, I would gladly back her. We've had no discipline. Well, one reason my wife's sitting over, she's also a broker, but she sits on the chair of the disciplinary committee, so she doesn't want anybody in our office to get in trouble. So we will be keeping a close eye on her, and then we try to guide, especially the young people, not just in the real estate, but how to impact other people's lives. Because whether people realize they're not, realtors you're handling some of the biggest, not only financial decisions, but those same decisions that can really impact somebody's life forever. And so I think she's matured enough now to where she can help somebody do that. And that's.
Taylor?
What, when she comes to work for you and as a new agent, what do you do to help her out in any way, education-wise or mentoring?
We
or what?
train. Yeah, we've got if we've got 20. They all get individually and corporately trained, depending on where they're at. Some are a lot. You take them to whether they. It just depends on. Their experience, basically their the way they interact with people, but also we tie them together with somebody that matches them. And what I mean by that is, like my wife or my daughter, actually, she works there too. We've got several people that's been in the business for 20 plus years, and they will co-list with them and walk them through these things. And then, of course, we're hands on all the time.
Other questions? Mr.
Bet
Wood?
she was a good athlete. What sport she play?
She played volleyball and basketball both, but she's a really
Okay.
I guess where she was taller than the other kids, I guess she had the advantage. But she was always in athletics, very talented.
Commissioners, is there a motion? If no other questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion by Ms. Hill, seconded by Mr. Wood, that Ms. Holt's desire to move forward in the real estate career be granted. Let's vote. Those in favor of that motion, vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. That motion passes unanimously. Well, it's a lot of it's confidence in your broker, so make him proud, okay? And I suspect you will. We hope you do for sure. Thanks for coming down.
Good luck.
All right, Ms. Borchert, obviously I have a hard time with last names. and Pastor Hurd, I'm sorry about getting your name wrong.
4 letters you couldn't even get it.
I know, 4 letters, I can't even get it right. All right, Ms. Maxwell.
Okay. Before you, you have applicant Crystal Borchert. Yes. And her supervisor, Melissa Misner. The firm is Wyndham Marketing Office. The summary of the disciplinary sanction is misdemeanor theft of property, February 2010. The disposition of the charge has been satisfied, and Ms. Borchert's statement can be found in a recommendation on your iPads.
All right, Ms. Borchert, what happened? How come you're here?
It was a consequence of a bad choice.
Move up close for us.
It was a consequence of a bad choice. Basically,
You moved up closer, and I still can't hear you.
It was a consequence of bad choice. I received some stolen property and pawned it, and basically took the charge.
When did that happen?
2010.
And how did you get caught?
It was pawn stolen item.
They have a camera, or they?
The owner found it at the pawn shop.
Pawn shop
and
had
pressed
record?
charges. Right. It was a $35 restitution.
That was it?
Yes, sir.
What was the item?
It was a digital camera.
How did you receive it?
An ex gave it to me as a gift.
Did you know that it was stolen?
No, not at the time.
I see something on here, probation, violation of probation revoked. Tell me about that.
Yes, ma'am. I couldn't complete the terms of probation. At the time, I didn't have a job, so I couldn't, or a car, so I couldn't make it back and forth to community service or pay fines. So when I went back to court, they revoked my probation and sent me to a rehab center. I completed 28 days.
So when did the rehab come in? So I see you had a violation of probation, and then when they released you, you went straight to rehab, right? So in between, how long were you on probation before you were charged with violation?
Almost a year.
And how many years of probation did you get?
It was 11/29, which would have been a year.
So right at the end of your probation, you couldn't pay the last part?
Correct.
And so then when they did bring you in, did the police come get you?
Yes.
Okay, and so then did they drug test you then and they found that you were on drugs then?
Yes, ma'am.
And so then they kept you in the jail for how long?
17 days.
17 days. So that was all that was left of your probation time? Okay, and then you went 28 days to rehab?
Correct.
So at rehab, did they talk to you about going to AA meetings?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you still go to those AA meetings?
I actually don't. I've turned away from that lifestyle completely. They teach you to find new things and people and places to do, and I've corrected those actions and done those things.
Other questions for Ms. Crystal? If not, Ms. Misner, so I'm always confused about timeshares. So would you tell us, first of all, where you see Crystal fitting into your organization, so I get a sense of that, and then also why you find her a good fit for your company?
Okay, my community marketing agents basically just all we do. I'm not really sure why they have to even have an acquisition license, but they basically just set up appointments for the sales department. That's all that she's trying to do right now. She's able to basically just check people in and give them parking passes. So she's not able to make that next step until she receives an acquisition license.
Will she be on in a kiosk somewhere trying to get people to...
It's more of a front desk situation. There already are guests checking in, and we solicit them to take tours. Basically, is all the marketing department does. We don't go into the sales or anything on that side.
So she doesn't handle any money?
She would handle deposits and credit cards and things
As
of that.
people check in?
She already does that, yes.
What do you mean she already does that?
At the check-in, when you have to put a hold on a card for the room itself.
So is she working for you now?
She is. She's been
And
working.
what is she doing for you now?
She's just at the front desk.
So she's doing the thing that she's here to get a license for?
She's not. She's doing half of it. She cannot actually book any appointments until she has the license.
That's why I always like to get a little explanation. At this timeshare, you can go rent a room for a night if you want to, right?
Yes.
And that's what she's handling right now. But if she can cause someone to make an appointment with one of your salespeople, that's what the license is for.
Right. Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's what we're talking about today.
Yes, sir.
All right. Is everybody clear with that part before we go?
I wasn't.
What is the location where this is happening?
We have actually 22 locations in East Tennessee, in Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, and Gatlinburg. So she could work at any of those locations.
Borchert, where are you working now?
It's actually at the Wilderness Lodge, the Lodge.
What city is that in?
Sevierville.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You may have noticed the gaudiest outdoor water slide known to man.
it. Yes, that's it.
That's the place.
It's not gaudy.
It's gaudy.
Kids love it.
All right, now let's get to the issue at hand. Why is she a good fit for your company?
Crystal has done everything that we've asked her to do. She's been very forthcoming on the process of getting this acquisition license. She's tried to actually have it expunged, and the Sevier County told her it could be up to 2 years, and at that point, that's why we're coming to you guys. She's changed her life for the better, and this would be a crucial part and a growth step for her within our company. We're definitely going to keep her one way or another. We're just hoping that she can get to the next step for her to better herself.
Just to follow up, because I continue to try to understand timeshares. Let's say she gets to the next step. Will she need a different license at that point?
No, sir. It's very strange how this is actually set up. I don't really understand it as well because we don't sell anything. We just make the appointments, and the people that actually do sell the timeshare has the same license as she would have. I'm not really sure.
So there is potential for her to move up within your organization.
Right, but she wants to stay in our marketing department and be able to do what we do. She doesn't really want to go to sales, do you?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve Ms.
Orchard.
Borchert.
Second.
All All right, I have a motion by Ms. Frank, seconded by Mr. Douglas, that Ms. Borchardt's request to move forward and get her acquisition license be granted.
So much.
Wait, we've got to vote. It may not pass. Stand by. All right, those in favor of that motion vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. It passed. Okay. Good luck to you. Thanks for coming down today. All right. Caitlin, we don't have any late additions to informal appearances, do we?
Nope, that was it.
Okay, let's go to the Education Director's report. Mr. White, we haven't formally said good morning to you yet. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. I'd like to call your attention here to the March education agenda. M1 through N34, all the new providers, several courses, and their instructors. I present those for your approval this morning.
Let's talk about courses first. Commissioners, any course you want to pull off to talk about specifically?
I just want to ask a question. When you look at these courses and approve them, do you take a test, or do you take the test, or what do you do when you look at these courses?
I just review the contents of the course, what the course is about, and how they intend to teach it. Those sort of things that make up the substance of the course is what I really look at. And then as far as where they're located and if they're an approved provider or not, try to look into that a little bit. Then essentially who the instructor is and what they're putting forth as far as their experience and being able to improve education in Tennessee. But I look for the courses to meet at least one of the 17 statutory requirements or rule requirements that we have that would fit within those elements. And as long as they do that, then they're pretty much, for my review, I think they're good. But I want to present them to you for any issues that you may have.
One thing, most of these classes on here would not require a test because most of them are classroom and they're less than 8 hours. So there's no test. So, I mean, only the internet and pen and paper classes, and I think there's an internet, and those that are over 8 hours, we have to have a test.
That is correct.
Thank you.
So pen and paper is required to have a test? And do you get copies of the tests along with the syllabus of the class?
The tests that are given and pursuant to that rule, it's never been provided to my office. And I understand from doing a little research that back in the day, maybe 18 years ago, whenever they started the education program, that it was presented then and went statewide to various schools and explained that at that time at least, they did not want the provider to send any exams or courses. Rather, they wanted them to keep them on file there so that if there was an audit from this office that we could see that they were following that rule. But as you read it, you see nothing requires them to send it here. So that's
Okay, and so do we audit schools?
I've been on one mission, maybe two, for an audit in my 4 years, going on 5 here. I would like to go on more, but I think it's subject to resources that we have. But I think that's something that's subject to a different discussion.
That was one thing that was presented in the plan, was to do that in the future.
So the other thing that this is my 6th year, and it never even crossed my mind that as we've been approving classes, we don't know if they're online, they're pen and paper, they're in a classroom. So when a person gets a class approved, they can do any of those 3 things with it. Is that correct?
No, Commissioner. Like on the agenda today, under your titles and statutory element, then out beside the course title, CR's classroom, I's internet, PP, pencil and paper, so forth. So. Yeah, I mean, you do at least have that information in front of you.
Okay, I never noticed that, people.
Okay.
Okay, that's good.
Yes, ma'am. And then, going forward, if it's an internet class, then they have to have, as you know, they have to have a CDEI holder the instructor has to have. Then they also have to submit to us a certificate from Arello about that internet course. So those things I would look for as well if it's an internet course.
And M15 through M18, I'm not wanting to pull those classes. They have to do with a basement crawl space foundation company teaching these classes. And again, I mean, I know I tell you this all the time, but just be sure that these people are not selling their products as they're giving these classes. I actually went online just because I wasn't familiar with that company, and I went online and they had a video, and it was a great video. So no need to pull off 15 through 18. I just wanted to make sure that anybody that especially is a vendor providing classes, that they not be selling those services.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, any other comments? I have one question for you. So this is, any course we approved prior to January 1st this year had to be resubmitted. Is that correct?
Yes, all renewals took place between September 1st through December 31st of this last year.
So here's where I'm unclear. Last year, we approved a 1-hour course that involved the Real Estate Commission meeting at a Tennessee Realtors session. 1-hour course. Has that course been presented for this year?
It's on here.
Did I miss that?
Spring conference.
So the spring conference course, it is on there for this agenda.
221.
And so if I was to balance the commission at this point, I would consider changing chairman, okay? Because I looked right at it. Didn't see it.
I won't be there.
Thank you.
No.
All right.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Or maybe it's just an opinion or a comment, but 6213.325B talks about distance education courses that use printed materials, and it includes a requirement of 6 written exercises submitted periodically to the instructor to be graded and returned to the student. And then it talks about if it's more than 8 hours, a comprehensive final examination shall be given. And then C talks about distance courses that are computer or online based, and they don't have to have the 6 written exercises, but if they're more than 8 hours, they do have to have the final examination. And given the lack of resources that we've put into auditing these classes in the past, I think that going forward we ought to require these printed materials and online materials courses to provide you with a copy of the examination that they're using, and for the printed materials, a copy of the 6 written exercises, so that you can take a look at those and make sure that they're appropriately testing the people who take these classes on the subject matter, and so that they, there's some challenge there that they, are learning this stuff. And I think that'd be consistent with our duty to make sure that we have a group of licensees out there who can appropriately serve the public.
I concur with that.
Okay. Can you address that going forward as part of the approval process for classes, that if it is an internet or a pen and paper class, that they do submit that to you for review?
I can.
Okay.
Can you also let us know which providers don't give that information to you?
Certainly.
Okay.
And can you let us know which ones are providing the answers also?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Miss Hills.
You mentioned something that there would be something else discussed in the plan. Is this today?
Yes, I can. I'm going to present on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to approve courses M1 through M34? Thank you, Mr. Wood. Seconded by Mr. McMullen. Let's vote. Those in favor of that motion, vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. Instructors, Mr. White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. The instructors are before you on listed in 3 separate sections on your iPad.
Question.
Ms. Hills.
On Badgett, it says Jerry Badgett.
Yes, ma'am.
So when I look back to find the name, is that the M2 instructor, Ammo Badgett? Are they the same people?
Yes, Commissioner. That's the same person. Ammo Baggett. I think Abbo's a nickname.
Okay.
I had a question on, in that same group there. There's 3 people from Exit Realty Blue. Is it Blue City or just Exit Realty Blue? Eddie, I can't pronounce his first name, Jerry Baggett, and Don Cockcroft. You have on here that 2 of these people are principal brokers for the same company.
Well,
And I looked them up in License Verify, and Eddie and Don are both listed as principal brokers. Eddie is listed as the principal broker of Exit Realty Blue City, but Don doesn't say by his name in Verify as to where he's a principal broker. But he says his company is. I'm just confused how there could be 2 principal brokers at one company.
I understood from the materials that Mr. Cockcroft was with the company, but a separate division or a
Could be a separate office? Could they have
separate
multiple offices?
That's what I understood from reading it. And Miss
There's
former
only like 3
Commissioner, Miss-
people in the office. When I Googled it, there was only one office.
Well, in the materials, I had understood that there were other offices or separate, but that, of course, Ms. DeChara, former commissioner, was along with that same bunch of instructors.
She
all
wasn't.
sent in
She
together.
wasn't on their website as employed there, though. She's not at that company. So the first one, and I'm sorry, I have to call him by the first name because I can't. I'm like the chairman can't say last names. Eddie. He's the owner of the company.
Right.
And it says he's the designated realtor managerial responsibility. And he is, in Verify, the principal broker. But then Don, you have him as managing broker of record for that same company. He's overseeing 11 agents, 18 years of experience.
That's how it was listed in the materials and in the resume documents.
So I guess my question is, you're not Googling these to see if their credentials are true and correct, then?
For the most part, I look into things, but that made sense to me as I read it. Of course, as the commissioners are in the industry, you may see things that I would not see. But when I read through the documentation, I saw it as true and valid. However, no, I did not look that up, but it did say that in print he was a managing broker with 11 folks that he supervised.
I looked at it.
I'm confused.
Eddie owns 4 different companies, and these are brokers at different companies that he owns. 4 different brokerages.
Okay, then that's what it is.
Yes,
Okay. Okay. Confused.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
other
you.
questions about particular instructors?
Do they all meet the requirements to be qualified as an instructor under our rules? All the ones that you're proposing today?
Yes, Mr. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, is there a motion to accept our education director's recommendation?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Wood, seconded by Mr. McMullen, that the instructors recommended by our education director be approved to teach. Let's vote. Those in favor of that motion, vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. Anything else, Mr. White?
That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and thank you, Commission.
While we're on the topic, and since it's approved for 1 hour continuing education, next Tuesday, can we just get a quick head count of who is going to be there? Bobby, Austin, can you be there?
I'll be in Disney.
Okay, I'll be there. Diane will be there. Ross will be there. Anna, you'll be there.
5-year-old.
Caitlin, you'll be there. Anybody else showing up that we need to know?
No.
Okay, so there'll be 7 of us. Okay,
That's the math, yeah.
4 plus 3. I worked on that for a while. All right, Executive Director's report. Thank you, Ross.
I have just a quick item that I'm going to pass out before I.
Okay.
First, I just wanted to quickly make mention of where E&O is at. We roughly still have around 1,000 people suspended. And so at this point, they've been in a suspended status for over 30 days. So at this time, in order to become active again, there is a fee that goes into that, as well as getting current E&O insurance. So you will most likely see more about E&O in the coming months.
That's 1,000 out of 34,000, roughly. Is that right?
Yes.
And what is the fee for the first month?
So if you get your insurance backdated, the fee is $200. So if you have no lapse in coverage, it's $200.
That's to the E&O provider, or is that the fee to the state?
To the state. If you do not get your E&O backdated and you do have a lapse in coverage, then it's $400.
We reached out to those 1,000 people in some form or fashion.
Yes, an additional letter was sent out last week.
What's your suspicion about these 1,000? Do you think they're getting out of the business, or what do you?
I think it's a combo. I think there's some that are maybe already in broker release status. They're not active agents. I think I was not with the commission the last renewal cycle, but I think from talking to staff members that we're not going to see all 1,000 people.
There was a Facebook page. There's several Facebook pages that are realtor or real estate agent licensees, whatever you want to say, members only. And in one, someone tagged me in it so I would see the conversation about it. And it was very, very lengthy, and it was people complaining about their E&O, that they had paid their E&O, and but it wasn't, we didn't have record of it. So I know myself, I got one of the letters, and we had conflicting names on my license versus the E&O company. But these people were really pretty hot and saying that it was happening every year. And it seems to happen to some of the same people every year, too. So so you think you've worked through all of those bugs then?
Yes, we allowed plenty of time before people were penalized, much more lenient than maybe some other of our neighboring states. And at this point, we've essentially attempted to communicate with anybody. Last week would have been the fourth time since January. So, and next renewal, obviously we hope to continue to always get better. We're hoping right now in our system, first name is a requirement. And I have asked for that first name column to be removed because the two things that trigger issues with us is first name and sometimes license number. Sometimes people don't put the correct license number. So some of the issues that we have seen are related to they did not put the license number that we have on file, or the naming issue. We worked pretty closely with the state approved provider on the first name. So we were communicating back and forth with them as far as who we still had in suspended status, and they were reviewing it with their files to determine who out of those people. One issue that we ran into this time was with firm group policies. We don't know who to apply it to often if the firm just sends us one big blanket. So we need to know who is under that policy. And so that was it was a smaller issue than the naming, but at this point, the first suspension ran, I guess, January 31st, and then they had 30 days to become compliant from that date before any penalties ensued. And so we feel like people have had, 80% of licensees have probably had 60 days to get their E&O back in
And do
before.
you send those to the licensee and the principal broker, or just the licensee?
So 3 letters get sent. 1 letter to their physical address, 1 letter to their firm address, and then 1 letter to their principal broker. So when the suspension ran on January 31st, 3 letters were sent. So, and we do, that piece we still do by mail. And then we did send out an email via the My Emma service on January, roughly middle of January, to let people know. That seemed to be successful. A lot of people got that, and a lot of people called us, and a lot of people fixed it. There's not much we can do if we don't have your email.
I'm familiar with it, that contacted me or received letters, because we received 1 or 2 in our office. It was a first name issue, and then one that I know of was they put the wrong license number in. I mean, it was they did it.
And you know, if somebody shows us proof that they submitted their E&O on December 28th, they're not falling into this group that. So.
Let me just mention, to your point, and I've said this before, but I have a Kentucky real estate license, and my E&O wasn't posted correctly. And on January 2nd at 2 a.m., I got an email from the Kentucky Real Estate Commission saying my license was canceled.
Whoa.
Didn't say revoked or suspended. It was canceled. To Caitlin's point, that this state is a little bit easier to work with than some other states. Thank you, Caitlin. Go ahead.
Yes. The other thing I wanted to just quickly mention, myself and a group of us reviewed the testing contract that was up, and PSI won the contract again. So that will start roughly in July. But just wanted to give everybody a quick update that the testing vendor will remain the same.
How many vendors do you have that do that?
That submit? Do we have 3? We had 3 this time. And then before I gave you a questionnaire that we had sent out to all providers that offer PMP courses in the state. After the last meeting and after the emergency meeting, we all quickly got together to try to be able to provide you additional information at this meeting and then continued additional information. So I wanted to share some of what we found out from that questionnaire. I think we'll continue to get additional information.
How many did you get back?
We got a 58% response rate.
Is that 5 or is that 50? I heard the percent, but how many providers?
Almost 60%.
How many providers is that?
There are 18 providers
Total. So you got about
that offer PMP courses.
So you got 10 of them back, roughly.
Roughly, yes.
Plus or minus.
Yes.
Okay, just want to check.
So some of the highlights that I wanted to share, you'll see the first question asked about offering answers. So roughly 70% of what we got back are offering answers in some form or fashion. A couple of the responses that we got offer them on the shorter courses, but do not offer them on any course over a certain number of hours. We got a mix of people that said that they send them out in the mail versus some people do the download either off their website or off of emails. Only 20% are actively advertising. 60% are advertising through other outlets such as their website and their newsletter. 50% are not grading 8-hour courses and under. And 60% use a third-party vendor. Is there any specific questions? I kind of just tried to give you the highlights of the big questions that we got. And then, we obviously got additional commentary on different questions. Mm-hmm.
On that number 4, do you grade and return written exams? You said 50% say they're not doing it?
The 8-hour and under.
Well, but isn't that a requirement? Isn't that one of our requirements here in our rules and regulations for them to do?
So Ross and I, have obviously had additional discussions. He has reason to believe, and correct me if I'm misstating what you have heard, is that a previous education director said they no longer wanted to receive those.
Well, it is our requirement, though. It is a requirement, and it's, again, that same one, 62-13-325. And that's B3, yeah. That it be done, and so I think we need to start that again and give them notice that we want to make sure that that's happening.
Yeah, and at this point, we were just looking to gather information just across the board, find out what everybody in the PMP arena is doing and where they fall. Part of, and I can quickly reiterate kind of what we had discussed as far as a plan at the February meeting. We wanted to do more of this sort of research finding, and part of that, we said was questionnaire, but also I think getting not even just PMP providers, but all education providers in a room for a roundtable discussion on education in general and the future of it. And one thing that we had wanted to discuss through that was doing a random audit of courses. We think it's probably necessary that a percentage of courses are audited each month, because at this time we see them when they're getting approved and then they renew, but we're not really seeing the crux of their course. And so part of the roundtable would be about that process. It would be giving everybody a heads up of what's to come, what it's going to look like, and giving them time essentially to prepare. So yes, this is kind of just one step of many. I hope before June.
What?
She hopes before June for personal
I was
reasons.
joking. So I think, if we gave everybody a couple months' notice, as we've mentioned over the course of the last year, we do have our education recovery account, which this seems like a perfect spot for us to host something of this sort, a roundtable with education providers. I think it would probably be helpful to give them 2 months notice of the actual meeting for them to be able to attend. And then from there, we'd obviously all work together on a timeline to start the next step, which would be the audit. And what we saw the audit somewhat looking like is obviously Ross would either take the course and then he would have a set of criteria that he was looking at with each course. And then, if he had any issues with the course, we would work with the provider to make sure that they corrected those issues that might not be meeting our requirements.
When somebody wants to have their course okayed, which we did earlier, the education course, are they sent our rules and regulations for those courses, what they're supposed to do? Again, I refer back to that. Or it's just they're not given any rules to go by.
Well, they're not sent like some type of form that would have that included. However, it is incumbent on them, and I remind them from time to time they need to read the rule related to this issue. And of course, that's something that it's on our website. They can look at the rules and/or the laws. But heretofore, we haven't sent out. When we get the documents in, we're not sending them something to say, "Look at this."
They do a test.
The route with the course to send, but you must abide by these rules.
Well, it needs to be before that.
Yeah,
in
right.
fact, I'm thinking maybe we could require it in our Train the Trainer class,
Right.
that discussion be had there, so that they would know then and there before they start writing a course.
But I thought they signed something online.
The instructors
Yes.
do.
I'm not an instructor, but that's what I
Yeah.
thought.
Right.
We could probably
That they have
implement
read
something
it.
similar for
and-
courses.
Yeah.
I think they need to be given notice that these are the rules.
I don't.
I don't. I mean, they, you know,
I think they should know
look it
the
up
rules.
themselves.
If they're instructing the course.
Right. But going back to your question number one, 70% of people are supplying the answers. Obviously, this commission has a bad, we have a problem with that. And I don't know of any other continuing education group that would be supplying answers, regardless of whether it's a 1 hour, a 4 hour, or 8 hours. I mean, I don't have a teaching certificate or anything, but I would think that teachers nowhere are providing answers like that. So, but if they are, you're telling me 70% of your, the survey said they were, then we need to do something to stop that. So would that be a part, Anna, of the rulemaking hearing that we say that no answers are given out? Can we dictate that as far as, because we are approving the classes. So if we say no answers can be given with any class, would that take a rule, or is that just something, a rule hearing, or is that something we could do?
I think it would be a rule amendment to include that, since it's not explicitly stated. So if we were to do rulemaking regarding printed correspondence courses or internet courses or anything in the future, I think we would need to include that.
Play a little bit of devil's advocate. We got a lot of feedback on our last question about the future of PMP courses. I'm just solely playing devil's advocate. Somebody mentioned on online courses, you can go back and you can take the test and the quiz as many times as you want. There's no, I guess essentially their argument was that on online courses, there's nothing preventing you from having the course over here and closing on a deal over here. And when you take the quiz, you can go back and take it multiple times.
But you at least got to come up with the right answer on your own. It's not presented to you. Otherwise, you just go to that back page, A, C, A, B. That's all there is to it. There's no learning to it.
I understand that concern, but our rule doesn't say that for online courses you have to be able to go back and take a quiz multiple times. It says that it would, for any online course that provides more than 8 hours of continuing education, and this isn't our rule, this is a statute that the big boys up the hill passed. It says for any course that would provide more than 8 hours of continuing education shall include a final examination that shall be executed prior to submission to the Commission for Education Credit. And so that doesn't say you get multiple tries at it. I mean, maybe that's something we ought to prohibit. I don't know. But, I mean, I read it to say you get a final examination. And, I mean, maybe we do need to pass a rule that says you can't provide the answers. But to me, intuitively, as a thinking person, when I read statutes and rules that say exercises are to be submitted, graded, and returned, tests, a comprehensive final examination, or equivalent measure of achievement is executed before they submit a roster of who passed the class. To me, that's just common sense, that you don't give them the answers. And we don't have to pass a rule that says you can't give them the answers. Maybe we ought to pass a rule to make it abundantly clear for somebody who doesn't understand that, but to me, that's just, what else does it mean that we're going to make somebody take a test that measures their achievement? So if you're going to give them the answers, that's not a test that measures achievement.
And where this fell out was the National Association of Realtors requires all of their 1.3 million members to take an ethics class, a 4-hour ethics class. So what's happening is December 26th, the day after Christmas, realtors start scrambling, I got to get my ethics class in. well, hey, get it from this school because they give you the answers. It's not being, and first of all, it's on an ethics class, number one. But then we're really not being honorable to the National Association of Realtors if we're allowing that. The purpose is so that ethics can be reinforced each year. So, I agree with you. Maybe you can get some word out when you go Tuesday to the TR meeting. But please, somebody bring that up because we got to get the word out. And I think it starts, too, with Ross letting people know that it is not acceptable. And do you need us to take a vote on that we will not accept any classes that are giving the answers?
Can I be heard on that?
Yes, you may.
In the time here and the research that I've done on this, and I've got to tell you, I've done a paradigm shift. I at first thought, and I may have stated this on the record, that the P&P courses, and that I'll focus on that for a second, that they were somehow archaic, or that maybe we'd gone beyond that period of time because we live in a world of the fast computer network. But I've had to go back a little bit after having discussed this with several of the providers who are in the business. And what we do here affects their business just straight on. So given that, I've decided that maybe that's a little bit strong because many folks in this state, maybe many folks in different states, they don't have connectivity. They're not on the internet. And so they rely on, first point, that the P&P courses are a way in which they can get their education. There's a good second point here. A lot of folks, when you do the P&P courses, you actually get a correspondence booklet. Many of the booklets that they use and so on are printed by Dearborn and our other national providers. They contain the answers. So in a way, and I think this is a good point, these tests that they're taking are really, they are pass. They're not pass-fail. They are an element that they learn from. So the booklets that they get with the answers are used by them as a resource that in many of the courses they take that are classroom, they may text or they may read their iPads or whatnot, but they're not even paying attention. Well, with the P&P courses, they actually have a take-home booklet as a resource and as a learning aid, because as I remember when I was in elementary school, it was great to have in the back of the book where I could look, oh, so that was the answer there. Now, that's not to say that was for credit, but rather it was for a learning purpose. And so what is being proposed, at least by those who are in the business, who've been doing this for years, that the commission and its staff has acquiesced in for years, 20 years, that they be allowed to do this. So now I'm not saying, and I'm not trying to advocate that, well, we need to keep on doing it that way. However, you need to take in consideration that a lot of folks are using this as a learning resource and swear by it. And then a lot of folks feel like that, at least I'm talking about the industry people, that the P&P courses are an actual learning aid and resource that help to learn the business. And what we're trying to do here is improve education in Tennessee for the real estate folks. So
right. So number one, to your number one, I've not heard anybody say that we're against the paper and pencil. That's number one.
I'll go ahead and say that, but go ahead.
Okay. Okay, maybe some are. But I do know that not everybody has a computer. But number two, if somebody needs a resource, then they can buy a book. There's thousands and thousands and lots of instructors writing books. If you need to know about a subject, there's a book written on it. You don't get your information from the answers at the back of a test. And we all know if you got the answers, you're not, there's a big percentage, I'm telling you, that took that class and did it that way because they had to get it in. They didn't learn anything. And we are about education. And I think it's more important that we have more education than settle for less. Give them the answers. And that way they've learned nothing.
I agree with that, and if they're coming from a national provider, the school that's sending them out can cut the answers out of the back.
Right.
When they
Or
take the test and send
That's right.
it in.
What several of the providers do that use those books, they develop their own test. And they send that test out, and that's what they look at. The ones that I think that are actually trying to provide education, they're doing that. The ones that are just using it as a method to just resell or sell CE, they go ahead and send the answers. I mean, and I understand that there might be a few people in our state, but most people have access to some type of internet and can get access to it if it's important for their job. They'll get access to it. But I know good and well there's people in my community when they go to a certain place and they're able to turn in 120 hours of education all in one day, and I know good and well they got access to CE or to internet. They did not go to that school because it was a great pen and paper course and they're learning. I mean, how do you physically turn in 120 hours in one day and it's being done? That's a problem.
I agree, Commissioner Wood. The only thing is, I talk to the real folks that are in this business, and of course you're one of them, and I understand that, and I understand also that this affects them culturally. This is a big change that if the commission decides to do away with this, it will affect them, and it affects their business, their livelihood. So
Sure
I
it
only-
will, because it cuts the money off.
This is
That-
simple.
that's the,
Exactly.
sure it will.
But I don't want to be seen as advocating for it.
No, we
I'm
need you
trying
on
to-
our team about this.
Yes,
We want you to feel good about what we're trying to tell you is we do not want the answers given out again anymore. And so
well taken.
he's already read to you that, we have statute, not just a rule. If you need us to make a rule, we'll make a rule. But we are opposed, and we will. I don't want to. And we're going to ask you every time you bring in these classes: is the test included with it? And you're going to need to know. You're going to need to know. No, they're not, or yes, they are. If you have any question about it, you need to call and let them know. You can't give them the test. The Tennessee Real Estate Commission will not approve this class if you're giving them the answers.
Yes, Commissioner.
Okay.
We can do all of that.
Okay.
That's not what I wanted to impart was that this will change the culture
That's
of
okay.
and you understand that for years we've acquiesced in it, but this is a big departure. And so what they've understood in the past will now be in the past. And so this will be something going forward where we'll request and be sure that they don't have the answers. And I'll also, as Commissioner McMillan had requested, we get the information about the testing.
That's well said. I think you just summarized
Got
it
it.
really well. And I have the utmost respect for the pen and paper courses. I understand the need for that in our state. It's been approved by the General Assembly. The General Assembly thinks it's good that it's available. I think it's good that it's available. And if there's a difference between testing that's required for pen and paper versus classroom, that's not something we made. That we're going by the statute, and the statute required testing for pen and paper, and it requires testing a little bit different, but it requires testing for online too. And so we want to closely follow those requirements that the General Assembly has put down on this, and that's what we're here to do, in my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's what we'll endeavor to do.
Diane?
Because we're given credit for this. They're getting credit that they have done this. And in the classroom, they're sitting there. Yes, they may be on their phone or something, but they're sitting there. It's accountability. Online, it's accountability. Most of them that I've had will not let you, it times you, won't let you, even if you know the material, you've read it, won't let you finish out because of timing. And I agree, and there are situations that the pen and paper are useful. So, but it like Commissioner McMillan said, it's got to be done properly. I interviewed a new licensee last week, and I said, "Where'd you go to school?" Told me. I said, "Did you do online or classroom?" And said, "I purchased it, was able to load it off the computer and see it." I said, "Did you know there were answers at the end of the test, the answers for the test at the end?" He said, "Yes." And I said, "How did you know? Did you flip through and go to the end and see those, or how did you know?" He said, "I was told that." I said, "By whom?" He said, "By a friend." It's okay. And he said, "But I had to pass my PSI exam, and I passed it. I passed it with one take." And he said, "I had to study." Now, his situation was that he worked a temporary other job and things, and he I believed him. He said, "I had to study it, so going to the end didn't help me." So that was a good system for him to take his education, and this person did study it, and it was proven because it was on the 60 hours and stuff. But the answers were there for that too, which really concerns me. So that was telling me it's just not for the core class, and it's just not for the ethics class. It was for pre-licensing, and I just appreciated, there was the perfect example. He had no reason to know where I was coming from in questioning that. So I do think there's a good reason for it, but given the answers, I think it's just most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. So, my part.
Any other comments? I have two quick statements. I think the idea of the round table is great for going forward. But over the last few years, this commission, and the chairman in particular occasionally, has received pretty extreme criticism from the legislature. And as a matter of fact, we're on somewhat of a probation as a body at this point. And so if the statute says they got to turn in written exercises to be graded, then I don't think there's any wiggle room at all in that. And if we don't enforce that, we will get criticism. And reasonably and correctly so, I think that's the law. So if, on the other hand, instructors start going to legislators and say, "Guess what the Real Estate Commission is making me do? They're making me follow the law," I don't think it'll work back down to us, because that's all I think this commission is suggesting at this point. Maybe there's a better way to do it in the future, and maybe that's why the roundtable is important. But at the moment, it's black and white in my mind. Mr. White.
Subject to Commissioner McMullen's suggestion that they provide us with this. Up until now, the statute nor the rule requires that they send it to us, but I can request it. That was what the motion was. I'll request that information, but the rule does not require them to send it here. And that's why all these years it's gone along like that. Now, whether that requires rulemaking, that's deferred to the attorney, but I can request that info.
I got it, but the law says you have to return written exercises to be graded.
Not to us.
No, I got it,
Right.
but 50% of the people who've responded so far say they don't do it. That's
ones that I talked to.
The under 8 hour.
Which are the largest.
Yeah, under 8 hours.
Probably the largest providers in Tennessee have said that they do it. But we have not audited it before. Nobody has gone out to look at these things, subject to our resource, of course, and we're talking about doing that now, and I think that may be one of the good things we going forward. But I just wanted you all to know exactly what I know.
I got it.
And I think the point that I wanted to emphasize that you made that I thought was well said was what's in the past is in the past. And I don't know why in the past we haven't done it, and I don't really care. I'm not here to point fingers about what happened in the past, but going forward, now that it's been brought to everybody's attention, we've read it, we've read that statute, and I don't think it can be subject to two interpretations. I mean, it's pretty clear, and I think we need to follow what that statute says. And if people don't like that, then there's 132 people up the hill that they can go talk to about that, and those people up the hill have the power to change what that law says if the people of Tennessee don't like that law.
And we don't.
That's right.
I agree. Thanks, Commissioner.
And just one more point, we'll get off this. There are people every day calling me asking the Real Estate Commission to increase the educational requirements of licensees and to do away with grandfathering. And I refer them to the people on the Hill, the same way as I'm referring these providers, if they don't like it, to the people on the Hill. All right, Caitlin, thanks for putting this on the agenda.
One other thing, I don't know that everybody would come to Nashville for such a meeting, so if you consider staggering it through the 3 grand divisions or something to get a better response. And I was just looking up the education recovery. I think it's 6213-208, but I hadn't found the part I wanted, because I think in that recovery it says the funds can be used for
I think
the education.
So. I think our first step would be to reach out to everybody. I think maybe May would be a good option. It would give people some time. If we needed to do
piggyback when we go.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Yeah, if we needed to do Middle Tennessee, West Tennessee, May would probably be a good time to do that because we're going to be in Memphis in May. So
and put it in your newsletter, because let me tell you, I don't want to buy a class that I'm going to, down the road is not going to be accepted. I don't want to buy a class, and because those answers are in there and nobody told me, then maybe I get disqualified from getting credit, that CE credit. So I think the licensees need to know this too.
Well, I think maybe from our roundtable we can issue through the newsletter additional communication of what came out of that and what to look for in the future for licensees.
So the roundtable, are you talking about inviting all the 18 providers?
I'm talking about inviting all providers of education.
So
in
what was the
Tennessee.
18 number then?
18 That's P&P providers.
P&P.
Okay.
Only.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. So this roundtable, are you talking about will it just be them? Will we be at it or what?
I think for now it would be more manageable to do providers.
Yeah.
And part
Otherwise
of
it's
what
considered a meeting.
And part of what we would want to accomplish out of that is to let them know that all courses will be audited in the future, and not just P&P. So it'll be a random audit of not just P&P courses, of all courses, and kind of what that's going to look like.
And the sooner the better, because we're focused on this now.
You think?
So I think we would shoot for that in May. So hopefully I'll have an update for you on the scheduling of that in April, and then from there we would establish a timeline to start.
All right, what's next on your report?
So the only other thing I had, and I'll let legal add in if they would like. Over the last couple months, we have had requests for letters to the commission, settlements with the commission, and we have an additional one today that would like to come before the commission to present a settlement. So sort of wanted to have a discussion about that, but then also potentially present.
Oh, there's a complaint is filed, and the commission, after reviewing legal's report, decides to offer a civil penalty, a suspension, a revocation, continued education, and at that point, the licensee, let's say, employs an attorney who says, let me see what I can do. And so that attorney, let's say, sends a letter to legal or to you asking to appear before commission in some form to see what they can do to mitigate the offer. Is that what we're talking about?
Typically they send it to legal, because that's who they're working with at that time.
All right, Kelsey, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I thought I'd just shed some light. We actually have Mr. Collins, who's right behind me. Now, last month, I gave you guys a settlement offer that came from Mr. Collins. That's regarding the hearing next month.
So what we're talking about at the moment is not his, but just the concept of people trying to settle before a formal hearing or before they pay a civil penalty? Is that what we're talking about?
We can talk about it in a broad sense.
Let's talk about it in broad sense first.
Okay.
What do you all think about that idea?
I personally think it's a good system. I think that our system encourages settlement out of court. Typically, the goal is to avoid having to use the resources and time that it takes to have a hearing. And I know oftentimes you guys aren't thrilled about having 2 to 3 day long meetings either. So, yeah, I think that settlement is a good option. I think that the commission should strive to reach resolutions of complaints without necessitating a hearing. Of course, that is your decision. And sometimes a settlement offer is just not good enough, and a hearing is warranted. But when there is a good faith offer of settlement, I think it's worth the commission's time to consider it.
So, if we adopted a policy like that, do you suspect that every time we offer a civil penalty to a licensee, they may try to reduce it by coming before us?
Well, that happens almost every time. We get a ton of requests to just reduce the civil penalties, and we don't bring in anybody that is just trying to get a penalty reduced unless they have new information, new mitigating information, something they feel was left out. In that case, we will represent. But if there's no new facts, then we're not going to let somebody come in here just to ask for the penalty to be reduced.
All right, Commission, in general, what do you think about this concept?
I think we're
Speak up.
treading on dangerous ground here. We're not legal. I think this is always a process that's been handled by legal, and I think they should still, arbitration should go through them. I like the old process. It's very clear and precise about what happens, and I think that's what's more on our plate than we should have on our plate.
Well, and we do as much as we can on our end, but I'm only authorized to agree to what you all have authorized. And when we have our meetings and, walk away with the decision being discipline, whatever it is, if I could negotiate that down myself, I happily would, but I can't. That is only your decision. So that's why we have to wind up bringing it back.
Oh, so it closes one door, but it opens another door, actually.
Yes.
Because, it doesn't come back to us if legal handles it. It doesn't come back to, legal doesn't say, well, they offered $1,000 and we agreed to $500. They don't come back to say, is that okay with us?
The only way that we can handle it is to either say no, because that's not what the commission authorized, or to bring it back to you all. We can only negotiate with the decision we're given.
Like last month, we had a letter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
In my mind, the considerations are reaching just and fair resolutions of cases and the appropriate use of all of our resources and time. And adding this step in certain cases may produce more fair and just resolutions, but it does come at the expense of time and going back to revisit cases that we've already visited at least once and maybe twice, maybe 3 times. And I don't know if there's a good answer to that problem, but that's the problem that I see. And, it would be to everyone's benefit on the time piece of it for all the information and all the considerations to come in at the beginning so that it could all be considered at one time. And to constantly have to go back to revisit cases, represent, and all that stuff, I know is very frustrating for us as commissioners, and I'm sure it's very frustrating for you as lawyers too, because we get our mind around a case, we understand it, we make a decision, we move on. And so that's the concern that I have with the practice of going back to the revisiting the cases and representing things. I don't like it. I wish it didn't happen. I understand that there may be situations where it needs to happen in order to get a just and fair result. So I've probably come down on the side of getting a just and fair result because I think that's probably more important than our time, but our time needs to be respected. So that's my view of it.
Other comments? So, Kelsey, how often does this occur? I mean, how often do you get a request to reconsider?
More often than the cases appear on your legal reports.
Wouldn't we all want to do that instead of coming to a hearing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
If I was the respondent.
if the civil penalty is $4,000, wouldn't you like to pay $2,000 instead
Yeah.
of $4,000? And you get requests like that, I take it.
We do.
And you don't bring them to us unless there's new information.
Versus going
That's
before a
right.
judge and it become 8,000 instead of 4.
So if it is new information, you believe that this commission is okay with you bringing it back, right?
Yes. More broadly, we actually have a departmental policy that says if there's no new information, then we don't bring it back. So that's typically what I rely on. I hope that you all are more comfortable with it when we do bring more information. Also, though, I think that if there is a relevant fact, then I'm not doing my job unless I make sure that you all know it.
So is the new information, though, an offer to settle? Do you consider that new information?
Today, or rather more broadly, if there is a notice of hearing and charges that's been filed, or in other words, if a hearing has been set and the opposing party contacts me with an offer to settle, I have to give that to you all. I mean, I am legally obligated to present you with that decision. That decision is yours and yours alone. Most of the time, I think that, I've never seen a bad faith settlement offer. I think most of the time they really are worth considering, but again, that's your call, and I have to bring them to you.
So we haven't had a Thursday hearing in months. So are they all being resolved? Are the people just going ahead and paying, or why are we not having hearings on Thursdays?
Most of them are being resolved. We do have one lined up for next month, the month after that. I mean,
we're not complaining about having them.
Sure.
We used to have them every month.
No, most of our cases have been settled outside of a hearing. That, I think, is about to change.
Okay, so that in broad strokes, that's what you think about.
In broad strokes.
In broad strokes, you find commission has been working with you don't have a problem with us on this. The question is, I'm still trying to get my hands on, my mind wrapped around, let's just go specific for a minute. Let's go Mr. Collins. The fact that he's here is unusual. But if we approve some policy change, would we have an attorney month after month after month coming here to talk about that, whatever their issue is?
I don't think so. It's worth noting that Mr. Collins is local, so it wasn't exactly hard for him to just pop down here. I really don't think we would see a mass influx of attorneys showing up. But it's worth noting, these are public meetings. Anybody that wants to show up can. You do not have to listen to them. But these are open to the public, and
or we don't have to take action.
You don't. No.
Because I can remember something once I'm triggered enough that I read that in January, but I mean, really, we get this on Friday afternoon for me at 5 or 6 o'clock, and I print it, and that's my weekend reading while I'm working too, and then to recall back. And for someone to come that's not on the agenda, come unannounced, I've got to come up to speed really fast. So I wouldn't have anything in front of me, correct? I wouldn't have anything about the case in front of me, how it was presented, or would that be read back in, or it's going to go on my memory?
I mean, I think the procedure would normally be, we'd try and get as much information as possible on the report, under the represent legal section. And also, your attorneys are here, and we do have a little bit more detailed knowledge on the cases, so we're here to answer questions. In a perfect world, we'd have information printed out for you. I do not today.
The one today for Mr. Collins, is that on what I've read this weekend?
No, that is not in the legal report today.
It's not on the agenda.
It's not, nor is it on the agenda.
Okay.
We didn't make an exception to the agenda.
Not yet, but I mean, we're certainly
Yeah,
flexible
I mean-
in that respect. But,
Why wasn't it presented this morning when we were discussing agenda?
well, nobody knew who was going to be here,
Oh.
which is good. We're not supposed to know certain things. People just show up without an appointment.
Yeah, I think, yeah. I
Gives
think
us no
we've got-
time to consider that.
I think we've got several issues then.
All right, so are you looking for direction from us regarding anything in particular?
If you all would like to listen to Mr. Collins' settlement offer, again, I think that it is a good faith offer. I think it is worth your consideration. I understand you feel a little caught off guard without the information in front of you, but like I said, I'm here. I'm happy to answer questions. That's my 2 cents on it. But again, it is ultimately your call whether or not you want to listen to Mr. Collins' statement or take any form of action.
We don't even know what case it is.
Yeah, no. And I think the thing is, if Mr. Collins knew he was coming, he could have called yesterday or sometime.
I will
put it on the
say,
agenda, and we would have known this. But this is just, to me, this has just got too many issues for me.
in his defense, I was at the dentist all afternoon yesterday. He did send me an email asking if he could be put on the agenda. I was not able to talk to him until this morning, like right before our meeting. So in his defense, he did try and get in ahead of time.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. McMullen?
If there's concern about Mr. Collins addressing us directly, what about just having Ms. Bridges summarize the case, the previous decision that we made, whatever the new information is, and what the proposal is, and what her recommendation is that we do?
Okay, at some point, I'd like to take a vote to see if this commission wants to hear from Mr. Collins. But would you rather hear the summary first and then see if we can get that?
I don't know. I mean, I just am throwing that out as an option.
Is there new information?
Well, let's go. Is there any objection to the request by Mr. McMullen that Ms. Bridges give us a
No.
thumbnail summary of what has happened today?
I second that.
All right, Kelsey, what's this about?
Did you all vote yes, we're going to move forward?
Vote anything on
Okay.
Mr. Collins yet, but
This is regarding the hearing that's scheduled for next month in regards to Mr. Jonathan Shane Forrester. He is currently licensed to be a principal broker, but since that role has been granted to somebody else in his firm. We found, after a complaint, we had an audit done and found that there were 30 separate instances of either an improper withdrawal from the escrow account or an improper disbursement from the fund's general account. There was no harm that we could find that directly impacted the customers, but the withdrawals and the disbursements did occur. I believe it was, yes, the commission authorized a revocation. You all did consider a downgrade, ultimately authorized the revocation. We offered a voluntary surrender, which he declined, so the notice of hearing and charges was filed. Last month, Mr. Collins presented a settlement offer that included a 1-year downgrade to affiliate broker status, a one-time payment of a $1,000 civil penalty, and was there 20 hours? 120 hours of continuing education. You all looked at that. There wasn't a lot of discussion on it, but you looked at it and decided that you did not want to accept it. Mr. Collins is back today with, I don't know if it's the same offer or a new offer, but he is here today if you'd like to learn additional information. I also have my own consideration on what a good settlement would look like.
So you don't have a copy of the settlement offer?
Not in front of me, but that was the offer.
Just verbal, right?
One was given to you last month, but I don't have it in front of me right this second.
And we voted last month not to accept it.
Yes, but again, there was not a lot of discussion about that offer.
So has there been any change in circumstances since last month?
No.
Okay.
Ms. Hills?
So, still with the information, this may be one I'm abstaining from, but I still don't have enough information, even from how she just summarized it, which concerns me on, is there enough information given? And one thing would trigger whether I'm abstaining or not. And can I ask this, because that's going to determine if was it a large amount of money taken from escrow?
In the aggregate, it wound up being it was in the tens of thousands. I think it was 50,000 plus in the aggregate. I don't know how much each individual transaction was, but in total, it was over 50,000.
Do you need a motion? Do we need a motion?
If there are any questions for Kelsey first. What I'd like to do is, first of all, Mr. Collins has requested to speak before this commission, and let's honor that request and see if we're ready to do that or not. Is there a motion to allow Mr. Collins to speak on behalf of his client before this commission?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Can I second? If I think I'm going to abstain?
You can second, vote totally against
Yes.
it if you want to. So it's properly on the floor, now discussion. Or if there is no discussion, we'll vote on the motion. All right, let's vote on the motion. No, it's not roll call. Let's say, if you're in favor of letting Mr. Collins speak on behalf of his client, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. If you're opposed, vote no.
No.
Now we'll roll call.
Commissioner Rick Douglas.
Yes.
Commissioner Marcia Franks.
No.
Commissioner Diane Hills.
Yes.
Commissioner Austin McMullen.
Yes.
Commissioner Fontaine Taylor. Speaking of that microphone, I can't hear you. I know, but the YouTube won't be able to hear it. Commissioner Bobby Wood.
Yes.
And Chairman John Grease.
Yes, is the answer.
Got a 5-2.
All right, so at this point, I'm going to ask Mr. Collins to come to the microphone with the caveat that we don't need a long presentation. Nouns and verbs are important.
Yes, Chairman.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the ability to speak before you. Quite frankly, I did not anticipate being able to address this body today.
Let's revote then on this.
And quite frankly, if there's any discomfort whatsoever about the facts and being ill-prepared, I had hoped that we would be able to have this discussion prior to the next meeting to decide whether or not we were going to have that hearing. And I wanted to have that meaningful conversation with ample opportunity for this board to be able to see the case, the facts, and if allowed, any presentation of additional facts or anything that would be our side prior to having that hearing. If this board would like to entertain that, I'm certainly amenable to coming back in April when everybody's ready and able to do that. Or if it's simply just more judicious for us to have that hearing, that's fine too. I just needed to know what the board's preference would be in that respect. If you wanted to address that separately, we can do that now. Or
why don't we just take a temperature here and see? Is there a motion that this discussion be held in a formal hearing next month?
Well, he's asking before the formal hearing.
I got it, but if that motion passes, there's no reason to discuss it beforehand. I don't know how you since we'd get back together informally and just talk about the facts.
Like Wednesday instead of Thursday?
Right, to see if the offer of settlement is approved on Wednesday before a formal hearing on Thursday. That's the question. And if I don't want to put the commission in any situation where they feel ill-prepared to make that kind of decision, and I would gladly come back on that Wednesday before that Thursday hearing.
What's changed from, and I wasn't here a month ago, but what's changed from a month ago when this was presented and the board decided not to accept it?
To my recollection and review of the hearing, there was no meaningful conversation. It was just simply the offer letter that we had, and we didn't get into the circumstances that I would have presented in the letter. And quite frankly, that's probably my fault for not making the letter more descriptive, and I can certainly lay out all of those changes and feelings that I have in a subsequent letter to give to you for April that would lay out those changes as I would present in the formal hearing, and perhaps that would be more advantageous for the board.
My opinion is, I think it's not helping your client for us to discuss it today since we don't have all the information. Is there a way that we would get more information, though, for our Wednesday meeting before having a Thursday hearing, Anna?
We could get more information and, I guess, provide you with the summary and let you make that decision then. I'm just slightly concerned about the timing before Thursday. I think that's very short notice, but not certainly. I think that's left up to your decision. We could get more information. You could wait till April, or you can decide here today whether you want to go to formal hearing or not. I don't really think there are any.
So is the status of this person, they are revoked right now and they cannot practice real estate?
Not yet, because
Okay.
we haven't accepted.
So the longer we delay it, the longer they get to, okay.
Other comments?
I
Mr.
just wanted to
Douglas?
make sure I understood that if we don't hear him today and we agree to hear him next Wednesday, the hearing is still set,
Thursday.
but it's contingent upon what we hear Wednesday, right? So we won't know if we're going to be here Thursday until
No,
Wednesday.
we've never done that before.
I think we're on a slippery slope here. I really think we are. I really think you had adequate time to put all the information in the letter. We've heard it twice, evidently. Now you want us to hear it again before the hearing. What usually happens, if there's a change or something, it goes to legal, who comes back to us and says, there's a change. I just think we're a slippery slope, and that's.
So in finishing out my thought, I would say we probably, this is just what I'm thinking out loud here, is that we would need to vote to go ahead and hear him today, or say we're not going to hear him the Wednesday the next month, but we'll just have the formal hearing.
And so any motion like either one of those thoughts is okay with me to get on the table to discuss.
Or if we had this discussion that we're thinking about having, if we had it next month, but we go ahead and set the formal hearing for the following month.
But we revoked this person's license.
No, we offered that as a settlement.
Right, as a settlement.
As a member.
So it's still continuing, this person is still continuing. So, what's in the best interest of the public?
I think the best interest of the public, let's get it right.
Right, that's true. That's true.
I would say it would have to be June, because we have a hearing set for May, and
And it's in
also May
Memphis.
is in Memphis. And so just keep that in mind as well.
And with due respect to Mr. Collins, I just looked back at the minutes from last month, and it said there had been a prior recommendation to revoke. The commission had voted to accept council's recommendation. It said the new recommendation was discussion, and it said new decision. Commission rejected the settlement offer. Commissioner Grease ruled no motion made, therefore rejecting the settlement. Proceed to hearing. I understand maybe from the outside looking in, it looks like there wasn't a lot of consideration or discussion of it, but the people who were here obviously thought about and made a decision based on the information they had. I think this proposal has already been rejected, and so to me it just looks like everybody needs to get ready and have a hearing next month. That's my view of the world, with due respect.
Thank you.
All right. So once again, the chair is looking for a motion of some sort so we can handle this issue. And if there is no motion, the chair will rule. There's no motion, we'll move on to the next item. I don't have a motion. Yeah, is there a motion? And last call, any motion related to Mr. Collins' request in any form or fashion? If not, the chair is going to rule that this topic has ended and we're moving on to the next. And that is the ruling of the chair. Thank you, Mr. Collins, for coming down.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
like to make a motion that we take a bathroom break.
It's too late. She's already made it. We'll take a 10-minute break and be
A
back.
second.
I'm running out. What I was talking about. I didn't know that. Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to tell you. Didn't know whether I was bringing him up or not.
I've got both snacks.
So I'm just gonna like curiously through. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm under the surplus and deficit report. I'm just okay. I'm wanting to make sure I'm reading this right, because when Austin and I went up on the Hill and had to testify, I think what was our account then, Austin? Do you remember? Was it $4 million?
Maybe.
So where are we now? Is that shown on this report? Is it now 2,400 or is it the? So it would be under revenue, or is it 1,511,000? I'm just wondering where we stand.
Education Recovery Fund?
No, I'm
Or
talking
just
about
the
just
commission?
track.
Oh, okay.
So this month, well, not really this month, in January, there was an additional 71,000, I think that says 593. And I think so far for the year, I'm having trouble reading that number on my printout, but if you go all the way over to the far right, that's where we're at for the year.
So 1,511,000?
That's revenue. Expenses are paid too.
No. Well, revenues. Okay. Okay. So the bottom number here, the net, there's
surplus.
258.
Yeah,
thousand.
year to date. Fiscal year to date.
Fiscal year to date. And I can confirm what the actual, where we are overall, because that's only year to date. Unfortunately, we have not seen the effects of the rule changes that are in place that you all voted to reduce our licensing revenue. As that was mentioned last month, there's been put a freeze on anything that's in place. So we still haven't seen the effects of the reductions you've made.
Well, that freeze means everybody's still having to pay the full amount, not the reduced amount that we asked for.
Yeah, the freeze means the governor did the freeze for 90 days, was it? Just anything that was in the pipeline is now been put on hold.
My concern is this, is that I would like to know what the number is where we are now, just so I can have some kind of knowledge of, is that number reducing or not? Or is it going up? Just in case, someone was to be called back on the Hill, that number is important to the legislators.
So you can, down here at the bottom, you can see the last 2 or 3 years totals. Like in 2018, the net was about a negative $18,000 or $15,000.
Negative? Where are you seeing that?
So let's say this revenue on this. Expenses were slightly higher than revenue in 2018, based on these numbers.
So what I'm saying, though, is that number I'm asking for is not on this report.
Yep.
So
I got
I'd
it.
just like to know where we're standing on
I'll
that.
get that for you.
And is Carter Lawrence now the person that's over, is he still over all the regulatory boards?
He is currently deputy commissioner, and acting commissioner, acting assistant commissioner.
Okay.
He's over himself.
Okay, that's a good job.
I've been over him. Well, no, just kidding.
Ms. Maxwell,
Yes.
looking at the at that surplus deficit report, I'm looking down toward the bottom in the historical trend under the expenditures section, fiscal year 2018. And it looks like in June of 2018, there was a expenditure amount of $735,138. You see that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which was significantly more than any other month. What was the cause of that increase during that month?
I will probably have to go back and get additional information for you. If I had to guess, from time to time, our licensing, the licensing vendor that we use, we have upgrades and updates to that we have to pay at those times. I'll find out for sure what that is, but if I had to guess, it might be something related to us paying our licensing contract.
Okay. If you could just let the board know
Yes.
what went into that number, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Maxwell? If not, we'll turn to Ms. Matlock, who will give us a legal update on public meetings.
Yes, so all of the boards and commissions have been requested to, we are requested to give you a refresher on the Public Meetings Act and the Open Records Act for you. And I just wanted, I know you guys discussed this, it's been in your orientation, but this is just like our yearly update that we're going to do. So as you are aware, the Public Meetings Act is Tennessee Code annotated Title 8, Chapter 44. And just want to read, it's just basically going to be me reading to you. TCA 8-44-101, the General Assembly hereby declares it to be policy of the state that the formation of public policy and decisions is public business and shall be not be conducted in secret. So the goal of the Public Meetings Act, as you all know, is to promote openness and accountability in the government. So it states that all meetings of any governing body are declared to be public meetings open to the public at all times, except as provided in the Tennessee Constitution. So this applies to every meeting of the Tennessee Real Estate Commission. And a meeting means the convening of a governing body of a public of which a quorum is required in order to make a decision or to deliberate towards decision on any matter. So meetings are not, what is not a meeting? A meeting, it does not include any on-site inspection of any project or program. Also, it does not include a chance meeting of two or more members of a public body. However, no such chance meetings or informal assemblages can be used to decide or deliberate public business in circumvention of the spirit or requirements of the Act. So, two or more members of a public body may share a meal together in which public business is conducted, but no such discussion should not constitute deliberations. So that meetings are not lunch breaks, restroom breaks, smoke breaks, recesses between morning and afternoon sessions, adjournments between 2 days of a multi-day meeting. In all of those times, business should not be discussed during that. So regular meetings and special meetings count as public meetings, and they are subject to the Public Meetings Act. The only exception is an executive session. Executive sessions occur when one or more commissioners meet with the commissioner's attorney and the commission is under lawsuit or has been threatened with suit, and the commissioners ask their attorney questions related to such suit. So during those sessions, the commission may not deliberate about any specific matter before it or potentially before it in any executive session. So here's an update about electronic communications. So basically, if if a commissioner has a question to one of the legal counsel regarding the legal report, that's fine. You're allowed to ask Kelsey or Keith those questions, but you should not say that you've taken an action as a commissioner and now someone is upset or those types of things. If you send an email or pick up the phone to call another commissioner, that is not a chance meeting. Even if you discuss business, it gives a strong appearance of impropriety and for safety's sake ought to be avoided. Electronic attendance, we are allowed to have individuals call in by phone, even though we don't tend to do that, but that is permitted under the Act. The public has the right to attend and observe your meetings, but not the right to participate. So you're not required to let anyone speak, as we discussed today. So also, all public meetings must be noticed properly, and so the notice must have reasonably described the purpose of the meeting or the proposed action to be taken, must be posted at a time sufficiently in advance of the actual meeting in order to give citizens both an opportunity to become aware and to attend the meeting, and notice must be in a location where the member of the community should become aware of notice. So all of our meetings are noticed on the website ahead of time before all of those, including meetings that may be called an emergency meeting or something like that. The notice will appear on the website beforehand. So there are certain penalties that come with the Public Meetings Act. The legal effect is nullity. The practical impact would be substantial costs or assessed against annual operating budgets. So in a nutshell, if you violate the law, any violative acts are considered void, and the litigation may be assessed against the commission. So if there is something that you're unsure of, whether it should be conducted in the public meeting or something, you can always contact me, and I'll be able to help you with that. Also, just wanted to go quickly over conflicts of interest. As you know, we just recently updated our conflicts of interest statements, and we just want to let you all know if you ever have a conflict that arises, let us know as soon as possible so we can update those statements, the forms that you fill out, so we can get those to you as possible. So we want to make sure that you, if possible, will give that to us within 5 calendar days of discovery of any conflict. And any and all questions with regard to conflicts of interest should be directed immediately to the board attorney, to me. So if you ever have any questions about something, please let us know so we can be sure to answer those for you. So that is my overview of the Public Meetings Act and conflicts of interest. Does anyone have any questions for me? Yes, ma'am. Okay, so this, I was reading off of a PowerPoint. PowerPoint hasn't been approved just yet, but once it is officially approved, I will for sure email everything out to you guys.
How'd that PowerPoint work for you?
PowerPoint does not work for me.
How about this? I will take the words off the PowerPoint and put them in a Word document. Does that work?
There you go.
There you
Okay.
go, perfect. All right, what about D&D School?
Okay. So Amanda would help me for a moment. So we have a letter that's been presented to us by the attorney from the D&D school, which I'm going to read to you guys at this moment. So I'll wait till you all get the letter, and then I'll just read it into the record. Let you know what our legal recommendation is, and then we will have any discussion for that. So this letter is from the law firm Inslee Baker and Shade. It's dated March 12th, 2019. It was submitted via email to my email address, anna.matlock@tn.gov. It's addressed to John Grease of the Tennessee Real Estate Commission in care of Anna Matlock. So The letter is a request for a temporary reinstatement of printed correspondence courses from the D&D School Real Estate meeting, and the letter is to be read by Ms. Matlock at the March 13th, 2019 meeting. So the letter reads, Dear Chairman Grease, I represent D&D School of Real Estate, D&D School, with regard to the concerns that have been raised with respect to certain correspondence courses offered by D&D School. As you know, on March 1st, 2019, the Tennessee Real Estate Commission voted to withdraw its prior approval of the following post-licensure correspondence continuing education courses offered by D&D School. The courses are the 2019-2020 core class, that's course number 13100, it's 6-hour course. The Ethics and Agencies Relationships Today, NAR course number 813. It is 4 hours. I am writing today to request immediate temporary reinstatement of approval for each of the above referenced courses on the grounds that D&D School is prepared to remedy and resolve entirely all concerns raised by the Commission. Specifically, D&D School shall remove all answer keys from the above referenced course materials and will grade and return each quiz to participating students in accordance with 1260-05-.111A3. By doing so, the Commission should have no remaining concerns regarding these previously approved courses. Ms. Matlock in the Legal Division of this Commission supports and recommends temporary reinstatement as requested herein until such time as the matter can be fully heard on April 17, 2019. To the extent that the Commission may be reluctant to grant this request due to its perception that this action on the part of D&D School comes too little too late, I feel compelled to briefly address this sentiment. At the January meeting of this Commission, no one on the Commission instructed D&D School to take any action whatsoever with regard to the courses in question. In fact, no one on the Commission made a recommendation or even suggested that D&D School take any action following the meeting. The Commission took no vote or action regarding correspondence courses in general or D&D School's courses specifically. Moreover, the minutes of the January meeting indicate that the only related issue to be taken up in February was possible changes to the rules concerning correspondence courses. There is no indication that D&D School or its specific courses were to be discussed in February. Likewise, the agenda for the Commission's February 13 meeting only references the general topic of correspondence courses. Again, there is no indication that D&D School or its actions or inactions were going to be discussed, much less voted upon. Lastly, when the Commission posted its notice and agenda for the emergency teleconference for printed correspondence courses, the agenda makes no mention that the subject of the meetings is D&D School or its specific courses. In short, D&D School received no notice that its specific courses were going to be discussed and or acted upon at the Commission's February 13 or March 1 meetings, and no prior instruction, order, request, or recommendation had ever been communicated to D&D School by the Commission regarding these courses. Nonetheless, the purpose of my letter is to request immediate temporary reinstatement of approval for each of the above referenced courses on the grounds that D&D School is prepared to remedy and resolve entirely all concerns raised by the Commission. Specifically, D&D School shall remove all answer keys from above referenced course materials and will grade and return each quiz to participating students in accordance with 1260-05-.111A3. This Commission's Legal Division supports and recommends this immediate action. Thank you in advance for your consideration of this request. Best regards, Jason M. Ensley. Cindy Easterling and Louisa Clemmer of D&D School are also copied on this letter.
Ms. Hills.
I have a question.
Yes.
And since I heard this letter, and then it just refers to the core class and the ethics class. Now, from my interview from new licensees, what I would have taken from that is that there were answers provided at the end of the pre-licensing classes. So how many, do we know how many paper and pencil classes that D&D offers that offers the answer?
I do not know that answer.
And they didn't provide that.
No, ma'am.
And the last paragraph just reference they'll address the things that are concerns that we have raised. That's what it says. Schools prepared to remedy and resolve entirely all concerns raised by the commission. So it makes me think they're just meaning those two classes.
That's it at this point.
The letter, to my understanding, is in reference to these two specific courses for temporary reinstatement until we can bring the school back in April to have a further discussion about the remaining courses.
And just for clarification for me, is there a complaint number on this, or will that be opened as a complaint number, or are we going that route?
There is not a complaint number that was opened. The complaint was just brought before the commission is because this is not a typical disciplinary issue. It does not have one assigned, but a grievance was raised, so we brought it before the commission.
Ms. Taylor.
Let me ask you this. If we did this today,
yes.
then we would have to go back to them for the other courses. Is that correct?
I think what I can't speak for the attorney, but I believe what they want is to reinstate these two courses, and then we can have a further discussion about what to do with the remaining courses when the school and whoever they choose to bring with them appears.
I personally don't remember. I'd have to look in the minutes that we only addressed two courses. I thought it was all the courses.
That was on the phone call.
Okay.
Originally, in the February meeting, there was a vote to remove all post-licensure printed correspondence courses, and in the emergency meeting held on March 1st, it was narrowed to these two core courses and the ethics course.
That's what I don't remember. To me, if they would do all courses, I think,
But we voted in that phone call to
Yes.
only do those two. And did you give them permission in this letter? It says that the legal division supports and recommends the immediate action.
I told them that I did, that I was prepared to recommend that we reinstate the courses. That is my legal recommendation.
And what research have you done that will assure us that they're no longer doing this?
I haven't done any information to ensure it. I'm just going off of the word of the attorney that for these two courses, they will definitely take these actions.
I know at our last meeting, Bobby Woods, the night before, was able to order a core class from them, and you don't pay until you turn the test in.
I didn't order the course. They just sent out an email trying to solicit business, and it had all their information, including the test and the answers. And then you were to take the answers, put them on the test sheet, send it back with your credit card, and you get CE credit.
And I looked at my emails. I've never taken a class through D&D that I can recall. But I must get emails. So I just looked at February and January, and that's exactly what those emails do. I got an email to me, and I don't know where they have my information, and you can hit it, and it was on these two classes, and that you could hit it, but and it shows you all the information. It shows you at the beginning the test sheet without the answers, and the last page shows you the test, and you pay for it once you submit your answer sheet.
So we're 73 days out from when they came in January to speak to this body. And so I'm just wondering, in 73 days, because I thought at the last meeting that we were told that there would be research so that we would know, are all the other schools doing or not? I know we got the survey, but what's the most important thing is it sounds like if they were trying to, it just seems a little contrite that we don't know, have they stopped doing this already? And the way to do that is just go online and get one of, it's easy to figure that out. Are they still putting the test with it or not?
Wouldn't be online if it's paper and pencil, would it?
Well, these two specific courses should not be disseminated because we withdrew approval for those courses on May 1st. So, March.
So
sorry,
did anybody
March 1st.
try to see if they could get it? Or do we know, have they changed it? Are we going to just,
I'm unaware.
because the attorney said they will change it?
I'm unaware if they have changed it yet, but this is something that they've proposed to us that they will change, so these courses can be reinstated, and we can certainly monitor and do research in between now and February in April to see if that's the case. I don't think they've taken any actions yet because they're making a request that they do this.
So there is a possibility of the D&D school removing those answers, and at that point, then we will allow them to be able to sell this course. Would that be doable?
So what I want to get is a motion to accept council's recommendation and to temporarily reinstate these two courses, effective immediately.
I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, the motion, that's the motion, that's what we're discussing. Now, I would assume by the time we get to April, you'll have all kinds of time to ask D&D, have they made these changes? But today, the question is, do we temporarily reinstate? And I know answers to the questions you're asking would help you with your vote, but I don't think we have answers to those questions.
I'll second his motion.
I've got a second.
Got a
All right,
second.
thank you. Okay. Bobby?
From his letter, he acts surprised that D&D, that we're unhappy with them. When they were asked to come to the meeting in January, why were they asked to come here?
They were asked originally when the issue was brought to us. We sent a letter letting the school know that the courses violated certain of our rules, and we offered them in that letter the opportunity to come in January to discuss that particular issue.
And based upon the discussion between the commission and the school, do you think any normal person could get the feeling from that discussion that the commission was really happy with them at that point?
I mean, that's a subjective question. I
Just
don't
give
know.
me your common sense. What do you think? What do you think?
Common sense to me, there was certain issues that were raised, but nothing was taken at that meeting. And if nothing was taken at that time, I think it's difficult for someone to go ahead. I can't speak as to what another individual would decide to do.
See, I would have just thought that most people, if you got called before the commission because of the way you were conducting business, and then the responses that they got from the commissioners, that they would have realized on the drive home that they need to clean their act up, that the commission was unhappy with them, but they still chose not to do that. I mean, I think that's why we're even having this discussion right now. If they'd gone back and cleaned their act up, we're not even talking. But, so.
Fontaine.
What I understand by the first meeting is that they were questioned, and the reason no action was taken at the first meeting, as I recall, is because we wanted further study to give them that option. I mean, to give us the knowledge that they weren't the only ones out there doing, and if other people doing. We did our thing. That was the reason nothing was done the first meeting. The second meeting, we came back with the information, and we know it. Now, I have the tendency to, and I know they've done wrong, but I think to be fair, since we pinned it down to two things, and they've changed their ways, I think we need to let them go ahead and have their license back for that, and then talk to them about the other ones in the whatever, when they come back.
They haven't changed their ways. They just said they would.
Well, they would, but they have agreed. They have agreed by this letter. Should we take
those
it?
two,
For those
that's
two
my
courses,
concern.
which are the only ones we told them not to, which I don't recall that being two courses, but other things I don't.
So
recall.
I think it would be prudent if we approve this, that by next month's meeting, that I as a licensee, ought to be able to go on their site and find out have they removed the questions or not. And as we said earlier, I mean, the answers or not. And as we said earlier, this is not our rule. It is statute that they do it. And so it's now going to give them another month. The only way that I could be for this at all would be with the assurance that when I, next month before I come to the meeting, that these things will have been done. On these two classes at least.
Well, and that's what
And that I will be looking at the other. I think we all should need to do our own due diligence if it's not being done by the state for us, that we find out which of the classes have the answers or not.
I'd just also like to bring to your attention, we just did a quick internet search, and if you look for these two courses, you are unable to access them
Okay, good.
at the moment.
That was the proper thing to do.
All right, other discussion, Ms.
I
Nelson.
just don't think it's on us to determine what all classes have the answers. I think could we not request from them that they tell us the classes that they sell that they provide the answer?
We can ask them that. We can ask, and we can, when I communicate with the attorney following this, we can ask him at the next meeting if he'll provide lists of all the courses and whether they have the answers in those books or online packets to bring that with them.
And better yet, on behalf of D&D, they're not going to need an attorney if they're following the law that says that there are no, I don't want to go through each and every month have a different class from this school for us to go over. It's a blanket statement, not on just this school, but on all classes, that the answers not be given. And this is not just about D&D. As we have found out, there's other schools that are doing it. We don't want any of the schools doing it. So I don't know why. If we say yes to this, then we have another meeting next month. If we find out anybody is providing the answers from then on, then there's going to be consequences for it.
Got it. Okay, other discussion.
Well, I want to
Ms.
back
Taylor?
up just a little bit. Didn't we, at the first of the meeting, though, say that we're now going to have these roundtables and then talk
It's
to
not
people?
till May or June.
Okay, but
Before June.
so, but we were going to weren't we going to give people notice to follow the rules? That's what we shouldn't have to, but weren't we
Well,
doing
this school has been
Okay.
given notice
I
because
got
I'm
you.
sure they're
Okay.
watching
All right.
right
Okay.
now.
that? Okay,
All right, I have a question, but it's not pertinent to this vote, and I'll ask it as soon as we vote. Is there other discussion on the motion to accept council's recommendation and offer an immediate temporary reinstatement of the two courses listed in a letter from Inslee, Baker, and Shade?
As long as we have the caveat that they, in good faith, we're not just blanket, we don't want them to hear a part of it, like it seems like this letter is only a part of it. We want it to be very clear to them with a caveat that they no longer provide answers to any of their tests.
So,
That-
is that
that's
an
kind of a
amendment to the
settlement
deal?
negotiation
Do you want
here.
to amend the motion? Or is that just a message you want to
No,
deliver?
I'd like to amend the motion to that.
Okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment first, and would you the intent of your amendment is to say, as a condition of immediate reinstatement, that they agree they no longer provide answers to any of their paper and pencil classes.
Yes.
Under 8 hours.
And listen, if they do that, I don't even know why an attorney would need to come here and present at the next meeting. I mean, what we're trying to do is just to get this thing right. It's not to cost them attorney fees.
I got it. So is there a second to Ms.
Second.
Okay, that amendment is seconded. We're going to vote on the amendment at this point. If you think that's a good idea,
No,
you'll
can I
vote
make
yes.
can I make one comment?
Absolutely.
Before we vote, I'm not amending the motion, but if the good people at D&D School of Real Estate or Inslee, Baker and Shade Law Firm are listening to this, I would recommend that they go back and listen to the whole meeting, not just the part here at 11:53 a.m. where we're talking about this, because we have talked extensively this morning about the requirement to not put the answers in the test. And if they want to fully understand this issue, they need to go back and listen to the earlier discussion that we had during this meeting, and I hope that they will do that.
All right, let's vote on the amendment. If you're in favor of that amendment, vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, vote no. That amendment.
I'm just abstain, so I just
Sure.
don't vote on this one. So.
Okay, so the amendment passes on a 6-aye, 1 abstention vote. Now we're to the motion regarding the temporary reinstatement of the 2 courses as amended. If you're in favor of that, you'll vote aye. If you're opposed, you'll vote no. Let's vote. Those in favor of the motion vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
Abstainer again.
That motion passes on a 6-aye, 1 abstention vote. Now, here's my question. I want to ask Commissioner McMullen this question. This letter from D&D School's attorney twice tells me my counsel is for their settlement. Is that appropriate, or would it be better for my counsel to tell me that themselves rather than this kind of statement?
I had the same concern when I read it, and that's just very unusual. I've never seen anything like that before. I don't know why Mr. Inslee put that in there, or why he felt that he needed to put that in there. Ms. Matlock and our legal counsel are here, and they can advise us themselves of their opinion and recommendation, and that's their job. And so I don't understand why that's in there, and that was probably the thing that concerned me the most when I read the letter.
All right, I just want to check it. It's almost like he's trying to create a paper trail.
Like he already negotiated with
Yeah.
them, not us.
Yeah. Anyhow, I was just curious.
My question is, do we have to make a motion to request that, to know what classes they have a pen and paper that, or any classes that they provide an answer, or we just should hold them to it that this is, as Commissioner McMullen said, watch the tape and be clear?
Here's what I think. At the April meeting, I think we've given them enough time for due process to be available for any question any commissioner might have about any of their courses. Okay? All right, and anything else from legal?
Where is this school located?
I don't have any idea.
I know.
Anything else from legal before we get to the report? You're sure? You're thinking about something? All right, at this point, we're going to move to the legal report. However, the chair is going to take his prerogative and ask that we consider the last 2 items listed on the March legal report. Now, there may have been others listed or added since then, but I'd like for Erica Smith to come up and present these 2, and she might have a little bit of information she'd like to share with you at that time, too.
The legal report or consent?
Legal report. These are 2 represents, right?
Number 10 and 11.
Number 10 and 11.
Okay, number 10 is 2018-038-531, and number 11 is 2018-038-681. And both of these complaints were originally presented at the November 2018 meeting, along with some other complaints that were very similar, alleging unlicensed activity in short-term rentals. And the commission decided at the November meeting to offer the respondents opportunity to get a VLS license. So these 2 complaints, the respondent has since applied and sent in all the documentation and everything that's required to obtain a VLS license. So my recommendation would be to dismiss these 2 complaints, as we have with prior complaints of this nature.
I'm going to read those 2 case numbers into the record. And we'll just
2018-038-531 and 2018-038-681.
All right. Is there?
I have a question.
Let's get a motion real quick.
Okay.
Is there a motion to accept council's recommendation?
Motion to accept council's recommendation.
Is there a second? Okay, the motion's properly on the floor. Ms. Franks.
So have they received the license?
In number 10, everything's been submitted, but the license hasn't been activated yet. In number 11, they have.
Well, why is it not in 10? Why have they not?
Just, it's on our licensing division's side. They're processing it.
So it's a month ago that we when do we see this last?
November. So they've sent, with number 10, the respondent has sent in their application, but never sent in their designated agent application. So over time, we've been asking for more things, and we have finally received everything we needed.
So they didn't know what to send in November?
No, I mean, I didn't advise them, I didn't give them specific instructions on how to obtain a VLS license. I just put them in contact with our licensing division. So
if the
they
person
may have
has
known.
since November and it's now March, why are they not licensed?
Because they didn't send in everything they needed on the
I know, but
front
they've
end.
had months to send it in.
I mean,
months.
I don't know why our licensing division hasn't made their license active yet.
So 10 was able to get it done, but 11 wasn't.
11 was.
11 was.
10 has had some issues sending in everything.
So
but
11 has got a license.
Yes, it's active.
That one's clear, but 10 still doesn't have a license since November.
Yes.
Okay.
Postpone decision on that one? Or do you want to, what's your thought?
I don't know why we would approve them if they don't have a license.
Absolutely.
When number 11 did.
Is there a motion on the floor right
Motion
now?
is to accept council's recommendation on
On
both.
10 and 11.
Yep.
I would like to amend the motion that we withdraw number 10, 20180385531.
So that the motion would just be to approve number 11?
Yes.
I'll second the motion to amend.
Okay, is there any objection to the motion being modified? If not, then we've got a motion for one license. That's item number 11 on our printed agenda. Is there further discussion? Now, is your intent to come back to number 10 next month? Once
Yeah, move the previous question on 11, and we'll come back to 10.
Okay, so let's vote on council's recommendation regarding number 11. If you're in favor of that motion, vote aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, vote no. 11 is handled. Now, Mr. McMullen.
I make a motion that we defer number 10 to next month's meeting, and we ask legal counsel to check with the licensing folks to see what the status is and report back to us next month.
Second.
All right, you've heard the motion. Just a question, is it possible to approve subject to the license being issued between now and then as an alternative?
Fine with me if it gets issued.
I mean, isn't that the issue? It's on our side.
Yeah,
So-
my plan was to watch
Activity
this.
to begin with.
So, it's just a thought. If
Take care of it, and we wouldn't have to
we
hear it
wouldn't have to
again.
come back to us again, but it wouldn't be approved until the license is issued.
I'm okay, as long as they get it, but I would like to know, did they get it or not at our next meeting?
So there's no motion like that on the floor at this point. Right now, it's just to defer till next month.
Well, I would like to make the amendment that.
I'm going to make it a substitute motion.
Okay, substitute motion.
That the license this council's recommendation be approved contingent upon the license actually being issued.
Yes, correct.
Is that okay with you? Austin, you okay with that?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, the motion on the floor now is offered by Ms. Hill, seconded by Ms. Franks. If approved, we'll accept council's recommendation at the time the license is actually issued. Let's vote. If you're in favor of that motion, vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, vote no. That motion passes. Is there anything else to come before us, Ms. Smith?
Not today.
No. What about your future? What's going on?
Well, I've been transferred over to the Motor Vehicle Commission and the Athletic Commission, and
Mixed martial arts girl.
I'll no longer be assigned to the Real Estate Commission, although I've got some cases that it will probably be coming before you as a formal hearing. So I look forward to that, and some straggler cases that I'll probably need to bring before you. So you're not rid of me yet.
Welcome to come down here
Come see
anytime.
us.
I'm glad for the invite because I'm going to miss this commission a whole lot. I've really enjoyed it.
Did you?
Thanks for your work, Erica.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
I'll see you next month.
Okay.
Can I just ask one?
Sure.
When I read the legal documents and I got to that, I've read with horror about the short-term rentals are starting to come in, obviously. So does the precedence now at this point is on a short-term rental that they need to have this license then, right? Because there's people everywhere all over the state doing it.
Yes, and I think the idea behind us giving them an opportunity to get the license without punishing them first is because the way the statute is worded, the exceptions, it is kind of confusing. So I know legal is working on getting that resolved.
Okay.
So it won't be a problem anymore.
That's if you're doing it for someone else, not for yourself. Is that right? That you need this? If you're doing it for yourself.
Well, yeah. The exception is if you own the properties, you can do that.
Own it, though.
But we've had like I've had a complaint where the respondent is leasing. He's the lessor, and he's leasing it from obviously the property owner, and we felt like that person would need a license.
So,
They don't
Bobby,
fall
I'm
under
a
the
big fan of
exception.
putting things in minutes. I would love to get legal's interpretation. If somebody would ask them to get that to us, we can put it in the minutes because it's helpful to refer back to a document and say, this is why we made our decision.
Okay.
And this is my scary thing as I'm kind of thought through this with these last two things. I mean, so basically the short-term rental people, we're basically giving them a pass and saying you need to get a license. But if it's unlicensed property management, we don't give those people passes.
No. And I'm not sure what the current status is of how we're handling new complaints that are coming in. I don't know if we're still giving, I don't know how we're handling that. And now that I'm not assigned, I wouldn't have to deal with that. But I'm sure the legal team would be able to advise you and Denard how they're handling them from here on out. But property and licensed property management is a totally separate complaint, and we still treat those as unlicensed activity. No special treatment or.
One of the big problems in Nashville, and I'm sure also up in East Tennessee too, is there are out-of-state people buying properties all over Nashville and East Tennessee, and then they do a VRBO, but they still got to have another person that's in charge of it and collecting the money and all that kind of stuff. So it's a big Pandora's box. It's opened
And they're
up
doing
in
it without
Providence.
permits. And
Right. And I've been really pleasantly surprised that I've only had, I think, one respondent, kind of challenge it, but everyone else has been very compliant.
This one had 80 properties, but it only had permits on 14. I noticed that too. Everybody's got to get legal.
Hi, Ms. Maxwell, do you want to say something about that?
Oh, I was just going to say, so are you asking for a recommendation at the April meeting?
I think that I heard somebody on this commission say they would like legal to reduce to a paragraph or two their position on BLS and short-term rentals, just so we can include it in minutes at some point so we can hang our hat on it.
And get directions from legal. What's legal?
A lot of whispering.
Oh, I think that could be on the agenda for April.
Okay, great.
Weren't listening, were you?
I was listening.
That's why she's shaking her head.
That's why she had to ask the question.
We are, back to you and tell you why. Let's come back to this.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Thanks.
All right, Erica, thanks again.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
In the meantime, Keith is taking Erica's spot, as I understand it. Have you all met Keith before? His hair is longer than you might have seen it last time. Keith, tell us just a little bit about yourself for those people who don't know you.
My name is Keith McCarthy. I've been with the Department of Commerce for 3 months now. I've been an attorney for over a dozen years, served as a Special Assistant U.S. Attorney, served in the JAG Corps, and served as an Assistant Attorney General in Ohio. It was pretty much 10 years ago to the day that I had my first unlicensed real estate case. And at the time, it was a record violation fine that was imposed, the tune of $670,000 for unlicensed activity. And I look forward to working with this commission.
That was in Ohio?
Yes, ma'am.
Ha.
Does the state collect that fine?
That's what I was going to
Gosh.
It was distributed amongst the commissioners.
So you're also still involved with military in JAG? Or
Yes, sir. Army Reserve JAG Corps.
And so
the hair
you're
will
going,
be getting cut next week.
Yeah, hair's getting cut next week for 5 days of service. You have to get your.
Yes, sir.
Well, we're glad you're with us. Our intent is not to ever make you mad, but we might occasionally. All right, just want you to know. Ask Kelsey. All right, we're on the March consent agenda.
We're on the
March consent agenda.
consent.
Gotta take this for a while.
Okay.
All right, you want to read your cases in, Kelsey, just the case number?
Sure. Number one is 2018-0667, number one is 2018-066571. Number two is 2018-066671. Number three, 2018-067111. Number four, 2018-071291. Number five, 2018-074311. Number six, 2018-075231. Number 7, 2018-076381. Number 8, 2018-075551. Number 9 is 2018-076791. Number 10 is 2018-076971. Number 11 is 2018-077581. Number 12, 2018-077641. Number 13, 2018-077761. Number 14, 2018-077651. Number 15, 2018-078171. Number 16 is 2018-079901. Number 17 is 2018-079871. And number 18 is 2018-079621.
Okay, John has asked me to get this going. So are there any that you all want to take off of the consent agenda that we need to discuss?
One, but I can't remember, so I hope somebody else has it.
How about 1 and 3?
That's exactly what I had.
Okay.
Me too.
Anyone else? Diane, did you have another one?
Oh, I'm notes, and I'm hoping these are the ones.
Okay, all
I don't
right,
have
so
my
we're
notes.
gonna take numbers 1 and 3 off. Do we have a motion for all the remaining ones?
Motion to approve the remainder.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Hills and a second by Mr. Woods. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, so let's look at number 1.
My question is, within the contract, who does it say was holding the earnest money?
The title company.
Okay.
It did? Okay, that was mine too.
What was y'all's question? Was that?
That was it.
Okay. Now move to accept council's recommendation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Woods and second by Ms. Hills.
So I have a question, though, since it's on. So I thought that our escrow rules were the same as attorneys and title companies. So would they not have, would that title company not have to go by the same rules we do?
Our rules don't apply to them because they're not licensees.
But I thought escrow rules.
They may have their own.
Oh.
It's we don't have any jurisdiction
Okay.
over them because they're not licensees.
I had a question too about that, because the title company holds that earnest money. They're the ones that, how is the determination made about who gets the earnest money? And it is,
Whatever's in the contract.
But in the contract, it says there's 5 ways.
Yeah.
Yep.
That states our rules.
Right, but if they are, if they are somebody else, how does it, how do we resolve that?
I think they would have to go by a legal contract, wouldn't they?
The problem is, and I had a title company that came and spoke to our brokers that talked to us about that, is that the problem is it really comes down to what each title company wants to do, what's kind of their personal rules, where we don't get that opportunity within our offices because the real estate commission tells us what the rules are going to be. So, each different company don't have their own rules. That's the problem with title company. And his problem was not that the title companies are holding the earnest money, it's the problem that agents do not explain to their clients that this could be an issue. I mean, we've had it come before this commission before where the buyer and seller couldn't agree on a agreement on what happens to the earnest money, and the title company says, when y'all figure it out, you let me know. And it was 6 months when it got to us, and we couldn't do nothing about it because we had no jurisdiction. So.
And almost, weekly, I get a call, do we hold earnest money? Because our company doesn't. So there's a huge amount of companies that aren't even holding earnest money because they don't want to be responsible for it. And in an audit, it makes it a whole lot easier. So that's why a lot of it's going to title companies. All right, any other discussion? All right, let's vote. All those for the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, on to number 3. Bobby?
Number 3, my question was, it looks like maybe the earnest money is still sitting in the account. And then what about the 21-day rule that Real Estate Commission has? Does that not apply? Or
No, I think it does. And the 21-day rule, it's not hard and fast. It says you have to show a compelling reason why the funds haven't been turned over in 21 days. I spoke to the respondent this morning to find out what's going on, and they're acting on bad legal advice. Their attorney, who also participated in the response, actually 2 attorneys from the same firm, told them that they were entitled to the earnest money and to hang on to it. Now, it looks like, I don't think that's necessarily true. Both sides have made a claim for it. Both sides have written up a release form request. Neither has agreed to it. I think probably at this point the funds should have been turned over for an interpleader action. But it hasn't yet. The funds are still, to this day, sitting in the escrow account. They didn't want to touch it until this complaint was presented. I just want to say I'd hate to see somebody penalized because their attorney told them the wrong thing, so I might change my recommendation to a letter of warning. I do understand it's still the principal broker's responsibility, but I hate to see people getting dinged because their attorneys are wrong.
Maybe they have the wrong attorney.
Yeah.
The attorney's malpractice insurance carrier appreciates you.
So, but this was opened September 20th last year, and 1260-02-0979 says that if it's not dispersed, interpleaded or turned over to an attorney for instructions for interpleader for the funds within 21 days. So you're saying because they've consulted the attorney, that's...
No, I'm saying that I understand that there was a violation here, but they showed me the records where they asked, as soon as they realized this was going to be a problem, they reached out to their attorney, who also owns a title company, and asked them, what do we do? And they were advised, I think you're entitled to this, but don't touch it. Just sit on it until this complaint is resolved. I think there was also a misunderstanding that this commission would choose who is entitled to it, and you guys don't do that.
And they would use that in court.
Right. So it's, again, the funds have just been sitting in the escrow account this whole time, and even though it is the principal broker's responsibility, I'd still only recommend a letter of warning because they're acting on bad advice.
I want to touch on something. You were saying that 21-day rule is not a hard and fast rule. I disagree. I think it's a hard and fast rule.
Well, I just say that because it says absent demonstration of a compelling reason, so there can be situations in which it can exceed 21 days. That's all I mean to say. But as a rule of thumb, I think 21 days is what you should aim for.
Title company's attorney is the attorney for the broker.
Yes.
And he says the broker should get the money?
Yes.
But the buyer and the seller each want the money.
Or not, I'm sorry, they're not saying the broker should get the money. I'm not sure who they're saying gets it. They're saying that the buyer breached and they are not entitled to the earnest money. Just from my view, I tend to agree. But again, that this isn't the forum to make that determination.
The issue at this point is the principal broker's got a path to not have to handle this anymore. And he has chosen, or she has chosen, not to follow that path. Instead, to follow a path along some woods with bad advice.
So when the audit comes, when Trek audits, and you two have been through audits, is that an acceptable reason if you're still sitting on money after 21 days?
Never did that.
3 or 4 months.
Me neither.
We don't do that.
I know.
This is 4 months
We wouldn't
later.
do that.
I know. That's my thing. There's nothing reasonable here.
Can I make a motion?
Yes.
Motion for a $500 civil penalty.
Second.
For, what's the charge?
Violation of 1260-0209.
And it could be
Is there a second?
Second.
I did.
And it could be, well, I hadn't found my B5. 6213, 312B5. I was looking for that.
This is,
But I'm good with that one.
occasionally, we
Yeah,
put,
that too.
occasionally, we put conditions besides civil penalties on a agreed judgment. Can we recommend or insist that the money be interplayed within 7 days of signing the consent agreement or anything to that effect? That helps him out, actually.
You can, but again, they don't have to sign
I
this
agree.
consent order, so it would be hard to verify if that happened.
I'll put that in my motion.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'd like,
both.
we're helping him out by saying, get it out of your account.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion?
But I don't think the broker has to interplead it. I think the broker has to make a decision.
To turn it over.
And the broker could say, okay, I'm going to give it to the seller because I think the seller deserves it, and that's their decision.
That's when the buyer sues him.
But maybe the answer is in
That's a
not
great-
7 days to interplead, but 7 days to make a decision and get it out of their account. The 7 days to do something.
To comply with 1260-02-09-9, which says, absent a demonstration of compelling reason, earnest money shall be dispersed, interpleaded, or turned over to an attorney with instructions to interplead the funds within 21 calendar days from the date of receipt of a written request for disbursement.
How long does it take you to get this to them? 7 days? What's the time frame? How do you?
It's from 7 days when they sign.
Approximately 2 weeks from today.
7 days from receipt of.
No, it's 7 days from when they sign.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
When they sign.
All right, okay.
Consent order.
All right, we good? All right. All those in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, and then. All right, Mr. McCarthy, we're ready for your first case.
Case number 19, 2018, 072581. 20 is 2018.
We're gonna, well,
Yeah, that's right.
He's good.
oh yeah, I'm sorry. I thought we were on legal report. I'm going to sit still. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Number 20 is 2018, 066721. 21 is 2018, 066421. 22 is 2018, 071931. 23 is 2018, 072811. 24 is 2018, 073961. 25 is 2018, 074181.
Okay, do any of the commission members want to pull?
I have a question on 22 from my memory.
Pull 22.
Right, 22. Anyone else?
I'd like to pull 24 just for one item to discuss.
Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor to approve this consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. All right, so Diane,
Was
we're gonna-
was there a motion on that?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
That we approve all with the exception of 22 and 24.
And Rick seconded it.
I did.
You remember?
Okay.
Sorry.
I did.
Okay, Rick. Okay, so we're
My question
number 22.
is, have we looked at our records? I mean, do we still show that there is a firm in Memphis and we're just unable to serve them? I mean, is it because their license doesn't expire until the 20th, and this is a firm, 2020, and this is a firm. So we've gotten no response because we've been unable to serve them.
Correct.
So we're going to let them off because we can't serve them. So could we not take their license or something? I mean, we're just then agreeing to leave the license out there till they renew it or expire. Am I reading that right?
Yes. So, Mr. McCarthy, did you look up and see the license is active and it had an address with it?
And
then they tried to serve them several times, and they're still not receiving it? So maybe they've moved and they didn't give you their correct address, or?
And do they have any, well, they must have a broker. Surely our
Can't have a
system
firm
pulls
license
it.
without a broker.
Yeah. That's my concern there. Not that I'm opposed to it, I just trying to understand it.
But that caught my eye too, lack of service. Why is there a real estate company that we can't serve?
Mm-hmm. Maxwell, you're looking that up, right? Thank you.
What do we want to do on this one? Are we looking up
We're
stuff?
looking to see, do they have a company
Oh,
in
okay.
Tennessee, a firm, with a license, is that, with a address, and is that the same address you sent it notice to?
Okay.
If we don't have, and if it is, we don't have a correct address on them, then we can do something about that real estate firm.
Pull the
Instead of
license
just
or
dismissing. What are the possibilities, I guess we should say,
It's the same address.
and sending it to?
Yes.
Okay, so there, did you try call a phone number or anything? We want to, we
How about
could
if
defer it.
how about if we make a motion to defer it 1 month and let's give it another try, so we can track them down.
Out-of-state firm.
Yeah.
Is that where you're sending it? Out of state or to local?
No,
to
it's being
Memphis.
sent to Memphis, and had we perfected service, it would have been a violation for them not to submit the response. But we do not have service after multiple attempts, unfortunately.
So can we take their license because we can't
We have
find
an
them?
incorrect address.
It's not our responsibility to be able to hunt them down.
It still shows as active, though, and verified.
Their license is active until
Okay.
October of 2020.
In your system or in something that y'all can see, can you see if there are licensees?
And it appears they just renewed in October and confirmed the address.
They have one affiliate and a principal broker. Or no, excuse me, the principal broker is the only. It's a
That's how
one-person
they do it.
operation.
Okay, so we don't have their address, which is their responsibility to give to the commission, so what do we do? What are your pleasure?
What can we do?
You can-
We take their license?
In order investigation into this matter.
Defer it until they,
Suspend.
Well, there's a recommendation.
Investigation is one option for this commission, but if we are going to take a disciplinary action, the respondent needs due process, and that is notice. And at this juncture, we do not have notice.
Can't do notice.
well, that's like a bank robber hiding.
Is the principal broker's address different than the company's address?
Principal broker and the firm address different?
I'd like to hear what you have to say
Yes, the principal broker has a different address.
Okay, so we can serve her there.
for him.
All right,
If we defer for 30 days.
Second.
Ms. Maxwell, what do you do you have a different suggestion?
I was just saying that 6213-309 A3 requires for individuals to notify us within 10 days of any location of office change. And they have to notify us in writing. And that hasn't happened if it is the wrong address.
We don't know that.
So, but I mean, that doesn't.
I think we can do a little bit more. We can make another attempt, and find out what's going on. Because what we have is we send it certified mail, and what we have is that the certified mail has not been signed off on.
Okay, so between now and next month, then we can send something to the principal broker's address?
Yes, or even
Or
reach
someone
out.
visit?
Who made that motion?
I
Okay.
seconded it.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Okay. All right, so are we ready to vote on that?
Motion to what, tape?
The
To
Grease,
next
Mr.
month?
Grease, will you
We're just,
restate your motion?
let's defer this till next month's meeting.
Okay, and Austin second the motion. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, that's unanimous.
And we cannot add anything?
wasn't here.
Okay.
Marcia,
Until
I
next-
abstained because I wasn't in here.
Okay, and Fontaine abstained. Okay, and then number 24, John, is that?
There was just like, I don't know if this is military or what this is, but there's like a bunch of, like a four-letter word that I don't understand. It's got like a dollar sign in it, ampersand.
Serious, you don't understand it.
John,
Well, I
of
thought
course you would ask about
I think
that.
it says fuss at you.
Yeah. I just was curious whether the complaint actually phrased it that way or whether legal cleaned it up that way.
It did, sir. In this case is different than the previous one. The respondent did reply per his statutory duty within the 10 days, submitted a response, but did not respond to the alleged profanity, unprofessionalism.
Okay, I was trying to lighten you up a little bit. Yeah,
So the commission should take that as true, that that allegation is true.
all right, thank you. I'd like to move to accept council's recommendation.
Second the motion.
Okay, that motion was made by Chairman Grease and seconded by Austin. And let's have a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Now, could I ask about one other acronym? It stands, you guys are using it for statute of limitations, SOL. What I want to make sure I understand is the statute of limitations. Is it 2 years from the event or knowledge of the event for any kind of complaint we get, or is it specific to certain types of complaints?
It's 2 years from the date of the alleged transaction and to the date that the complaint is filed, and it is extended by the discovery rule. So if it is not discovered within that 2 years, it must be 2 years within the discovery from the filing.
For all complaints. For all complaints.
All complaints? Okay.
Yes.
And you guys, as a matter of just doing your business, try to figure out when that 2 years starts, right? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're ready to go to the legal report now. If I can get it. First, we have Ms. Bridges. Complaint number 1.
Number 1 is 2018-061591. Complainant entered into an independent contractor work agreement with respondent, a licensed broker. Complainant is not a licensee. Complainant's job title was closing coordinator, and their work duties included client intake, scheduling closings, drafting documents, ensuring the accuracy of MLS listings, and other administrative work. Complainant states that when they attempted to provide their 2 weeks' notice on August 24th, 2018, respondent refused to accept complainant's resignation and stated that they were already terminated. Complainant alleges that as of the termination, they have not received all monies owed to them as compensation under the independent contractor agreement. Respondent did not answer the complaint. Counsel believes that this matter likely would have been dismissed had respondent answered the complaint, but nevertheless recommends a civil penalty be assessed for respondent's failure to submit an answer in violation of Tennessee Code Annotated 62-13-313A2. And the recommendation is for a $250 civil penalty for respondent's failure to answer the complaint.
Why just 250? A lot
Yeah.
of times we give them 1,000 because when they thumb their nose at us.
I tried to just be a little bit more conscious of the civil penalty amounts in my recommendations this time. The rule does ask the commission to consider various factors as to why the penalty is being assessed. And just quite frankly, it doesn't always have to be the maximum, so I thought I'd start with the minimum and see where the commission lands.
Did they have did the person that filed the complaint send in the independent contract agreement?
They sent in portions of it, but not
As
the
to
entire
how they're
agreement.
paid? Are they paid on closings or?
It said, it was very vague. They said that they were paid based upon files closed.
Isn't that interesting?
Which I would assume maybe means per transaction or per sale that closes.
Well, that's not
And the
the
complainant
way
is
it
not,
happens.
The
And then-
complainant is licensed or not?
No, not
The
licensed.
complainant is not licensed. The complainant says they were doing administrative and clerical work. Now, if they're getting paid for that kind of work per transaction, just because it's per transaction doesn't mean that they're brokering. But that is I see where you're going, and I mean, that is something to
It's
look out
tied
for.
to that. It's tied to that address and that file, and they've received compensation from it.
Well, sure, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're acting as a broker.
As a licensee and drafting documents. They were drafting documents, is what the first paragraph says.
I don't know what kind of documents they were drafting. This was taken from a list of their scope of services.
So those kind of issues is what helps us to determine what that fee should be. I do feel like that we have to be pretty consistent on unlicensed, that we really need to decide, non-response, excuse me, that we have to be consistent on that, because it's not fair, I don't think, to give this one, and this one. And I know it is, depending on the circumstances, but the circumstances when you get no reply is the same every time, no reply.
Maybe they didn't want to
We've been
reply.
doing-
Maybe they
because
don't want to
there's
reply because they've
too
been
much
paying this
information.
person.
We've been doing
Motion for a
$1,000
$1,000 civil penalty.
Second.
Okay. Motion made for a $1,000 penalty. Do we want to add anything to that, or is that what you want?
I think wait until they.
No education or nothing.
So what I'd really like to do is hear a response from them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't guess we have any mechanism to force that to happen.
No, I don't think we could force them to submit a response and penalize them for not submitting a response at the same time.
Do we give them an either or?
Yes.
6213. Let me look up 6213-302.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the response time is 10 days. Now, a lot of times people will reach out to us and ask, can I have extra time? We're always happy to give it to them.
Right.
But in this situation, even if they do provide us with a response, there's still going to be a violation for not submitting it within 10 days. So.
6213-302, employment of broker or unlicensed broker in another state.
Okay, so what do you think? Mr. Grease, did you want to add something to it?
I want to call for the question on the motion on the floor.
Okay, all right, there's been a call for the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. That carries unanimously. All right. Number 2.
Number 2 is 2018-063971. Complainant was a property seller and respondent was the buyer's designated agent. Complainant was also represented by an agent in the transaction. Complainant alleges respondent failed to represent the interests of all parties in the transaction and failed to perform their duties as the buyer's real estate agent. Complainant states this caused the buyer to have to rely on complainant's agent for things respondent should have taken care of, such as performing the final walkthrough and ensuring closing proceeded as planned. Respondent denied complainant's allegations and stated that when they agreed to represent the buyer in this transaction, they clearly communicated to the listing agent that they reside 3 hours away and would need the listing agent's help in scheduling showings, inspections, etc., and in exchange, respondent would receive only a 1% commission. Respondent states that they were unable unable to attend the closing because they had to unexpectedly visit their father-in-law in India due to a medical emergency. Nevertheless, respondent claims they remained in touch and available to their client and complainant's agent while they were abroad. Respondent states that they and the listing agent worked well together throughout the transaction and that the only issue that ever came up was with the closing. Apparently, the lender made some sort of error that caused a delay. The lender accepted full responsibility for the error in an email provided by respondent, and respondent also provided the compensation agreement between the two agents. Counsel spoke with the agent for complainant, who confirmed that they agreed to help respondent in the transaction. However, they state they did not know respondent would be unavailable for the closing. The agent stated that when they spoke to respondent after the closing, respondent thought they had told the agent they would be out of the country, but it appears there was either a miscommunication or respondent simply forgot. Overall, complainant's agent stated that everything worked out, but that had respondent been available or told them in advance that they would be gone, the closing issue could have been avoided. It appears that most of complainant's allegations are unfounded, but that there was, in fact, an issue with the closing due to poor communication. In light of the fact that respondent has no prior discipline, counsel recommends a letter of warning.
I find it interesting that it's the seller complaining about the buyer's agent.
I did too.
And if anybody should have been complaining, it should have been the buyer, if they didn't like or didn't know what was going on. And so for that reason, I'd like to make a motion that we dismiss.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? One thing I would like to say, Kelsey, is you put in here that they had traveled abroad to India. If you would not use, I mean, let's don't use Memphis, let's don't use India, those kind of things. And here's why. Not that it affects this one, but it did make me realize that we have a huge Indian population that's moved in the Middle Tennessee area. I don't know if it's everywhere all over the state, but they tend to do things a little bit different in their culture. And one of them is they help each other out with their commissions splits. And we had this at one of our subdivisions, and they were only going to take 1% and give the other 2% to the buyers, their buyers. And when I looked at it, and my attorney looked at it, we saw that as an inducement, and so we're not allowing that. So they're doing, the percentage that we had listed in the MLS, but we need to be, when that word India was in here, it made my mind go to there thinking, oh, they do things differently, not so much, they don't do everything exactly like we do because of their culture. So just, if any,
Stay out of the country.
Just out of the country and not Memphis.
I thought India was far enough away where I could throw in that, the name of that country, but I got it.
I thought it was Indiana myself, so.
I know you guys don't like Memphis that much, but it's not out of the country.
For me, it is. I'm just saying a specific place makes our minds go there. All right, do we have a motion?
Motion to dismiss.
Motion to
Yes.
dismiss by,
I seconded it.
okay. All those in favor of the dismissing?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right.
All right, number 3 is 2018-064171. This failure to supervise complaint was opened administratively following the Commission's authorization of formal charges against Respondent's former affiliate broker. The affiliate broker has since left Respondent's firm, and Respondent is no longer acting as a principal broker. In 2018, the Commission authorized disciplinary action against an affiliate broker after finding they failed to exercise reasonable skill and care in a transaction involving the original complainant, also a licensee. In short, the Commission found that the affiliate broker was difficult to reach and caused unnecessary delays. In addition to authorizing a $3,000 civil penalty against the affiliate, the Commission authorized the opening of a failure to supervise complaint against the affiliate's then managing principal broker. It's worth noting that the underlying transaction that served as the basis of the original complaint originated with the affiliate broker's previous firm. And after they were released, they continued to hold themselves out as an affiliate of their old firm until the transaction closed. After reviewing the affiliate broker's transfer and release forms, it is apparent that Respondent was technically the supervising principal broker during the time of the affiliate's violations. However, it does not appear that Respondent was aware of the affiliate broker's ongoing transaction/violations prior to signing off on the transfer. Further, Respondent states that although they signed the affiliate broker's transfer form on February 9th, The affiliate did not start working out of respondent's office until February 22nd. This was also the date that the transaction closed. Council notes that respondent is no longer an acting managing broker, although their license would permit them to do so again at any point. It should also be noted that respondent received a letter of warning in 2017 regarding supervision and an affiliate broker's advertising violation. In light of these considerations, council recommends a minimal civil penalty be assessed, and my recommendation is for a $250 penalty.
So when we sign, when a broker signs to take someone and we send it in, that's when the clock starts, right?
As soon as commission staff receives it and processes it, that is when the clock starts.
So if I email it today and Trek doesn't process it until 5 days from now, they're still under my purview?
I think as soon as you sign it out.
I think
That's
after
what I
the
always
last
thought.
meeting,
As soon as
we
you sign,
discussed the date of receipt. So it's the date that we receive it. So if you do it online, that's the date that you file
we
it.
email it.
If you do it in the mail, it's the date that we stamp date that we received it.
So Principal Broker 1 was the one who had the authority when this took place, correct?
Yeah, initially we sent it, I think we wound up sending this honestly to 2, if not 3 principal brokers, because this affiliate, they had a particularly confusing history. They were jumping around to a bunch of firms. They do. I think this was
11 days.
I think in this situation, most of the blame is on the affiliate. I don't have proof of it, but I really suspect that the affiliate was acting without a broker, technically.
So is there a motion?
So we think this is on the right broker for the 250?
This is on the right broker. This affiliate, according to our documents, our records, this affiliate was with this broker during the time of the violations, but they did not actually start working out of that broker's firm.
Well, we may
until-
not see them. Now we don't have a 50-mile rule. We may never see them.
No, I know. I just wanted to point out that, yes, technically speaking, they were under their supervision. Had they actually started, I don't believe so.
They were there.
Yes.
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 So that means they were there. Okay.
So do we have a motion?
I'll move to accept council's recommendation.
Second, I didn't speak up.
Okay, we have a motion to accept council's recommendation of a $250 civil penalty made by John and seconded by Fontaine. Any other discussion? All those in favor, vote by aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
McMullen abstain.
All right, number 4.
Number 4 is 2018-077381. Complainant is a tenant in an apartment managed by respondent. Complainant alleges respondent refused to address their concerns about flooding and mold in the basement and states they need assistance getting out of their lease early. Respondent answered the complaint and stated they would credit complainant's account as a reimbursement for their previous month's rent and refund complainant's security deposit in full. Complainant's request is better suited for a private civil action. However, it appears respondent is actively involved in the lease of rental properties, including rent and security deposit negotiations, and that respondent is not licensed. Council recommends a civil penalty be assessed for unlicensed activity, and that recommendation is for a $1,000 penalty and language directing respondent to cease and desist.
Accept council's recommendation.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, motion made by Ms. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Wood. All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Number 5.
Number 5 is 2018-079651. Complainant is a home buyer and respondent was the listing agent. Respondent was also an investor in the property but was not the seller. Complainant alleges respondent failed to make required disclosures about adverse property conditions. First, complainant states that the MLS listing provided that the property contained all new windows, but complainant found after moving in that one of the windows had not been replaced. Complainant also states that the HVAC unit was in bad shape and appears to have been installed by someone who isn't licensed, and that there were also water intrusion issues in the basement. Respondent denies misleading complainant or withholding information about the property and notes that complainant had a home inspection done and visited the property numerous times before closing. Respondent states that after complainant notified them about the window, they contacted the installation company, who corrected the oversight within a week. As for the HVAC, respondent states that the home inspector hired by complainant found no issues with it, but nevertheless, respondent ensured that repairs would be covered by complainant's home warranty and states that the issues have now been resolved. As to the water intrusion, respondent states that they had no knowledge of any similar issues prior to complainant taking possession. Respondent included the entire transaction file in their response, including personal interest disclosure and residential property disclosure exemption forms signed by complainant and receipts for the window and HVAC repairs. And rebuttal, complainant confirms that someone came out to repair the HVAC unit, but does not state whether the issue was resolved. Complainant states that they have continued to experience drainage and water intrusion issues in the basement and suspects that it is the result of faulty construction. Complainant also states that they confirm with the city that respondent never obtained permits for renovations made to the property. With regard to complainant's concerns about the construction and renovation of the property, council would suggest that this matter be referred to the contractors board. Otherwise, in light of the disclosure and exemption forms signed by complainant and the steps taken by respondent to address the window and HVAC unit, council recommends this matter be dismissed. My recommendation is for a dismissal or a referral to the contractors licensing board.
I'll make a motion just to dismiss.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Just have one question. The second sentence in your narrative says the respondent was also an investor in the property but was not the seller. What does that mean? Was it a corporate entity that owned the property?
No, I think it was more like a partnership. They put in some money, but they were not on the deed. They didn't own the property in any way. They just had an interest invested in the property.
Get that.
I imagine they were expecting a portion of the proceeds from the sale, but I'm not really sure what the exact setup was.
They've had some side agreement that written or otherwise.
But from a licensee's point of view, if they have an interest in the property, they should disclose it.
Right, and there was a personal interest disclosure.
Yeah. Okay, so that's why the narrative confused me, because I'd say being an investor would make him an owner or her an owner. Maybe not, unless it's an entity. Anyhow, just a question.
I have money
At the
in.
top of page 5, it said that it included a personal interest disclosure.
I got it. Yes, but I would say they're an owner. Maybe
That's why
not.
they had the personal interest disclosure.
Yeah, but the sentence said they weren't an owner. That's why I was confused.
So, like, just make up examples. Say if it was a daddy, and then daddy helped out the son, who was the owner of the property, with some money, he'd want to disclose that, but he wouldn't necessarily be the owner of the property. So
It says not the seller.
But
It says respondent was also an investor in the property but was not the seller.
By default, in my mind, if you're an investor, you're probably also the seller in some form. Either here or there. I don't mean to hold this discussion up.
I'll be looking for money when it sells.
Very interesting.
Thank you very much.
As the investor.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor? Vote aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, number 6.
Number 6 is 2018-079961. Anonymous complainant alleges unlicensed activity after receiving a mass marketing advertisement in the mail. Complainant also alleges that respondent's advertisement violates commission rules as it includes a gift certificate that can be redeemed for a $1,000 credit towards escrow upon closing. Respondent admits that they inadvertently allowed their license to lapse. Respondent states they accidentally sent in their renewal fee on a canceled check, but upon being alerted to the issue, they contacted commission staff to resubmit their payment. Respondent states that they were also advised that they were missing their 2017-2018 core class, but that they went online and completed it that day. Respondent's license was reinstated, but it was expired when the complaint was filed. Respondent denies that their advertisement violated any rules and states their principal broker approved it before they sent it out. Tennessee Comprehensive Rules and Regulations 1260-02-.33 provides that a licensee may offer a gift prize or other valuable consideration as an inducement to the purchase, listing, or lease of real estate if the offer is made in writing, includes all pertinent details, is signed by the licensee, and made under the sponsorship and with the approval of the licensee's firm. However, Tennessee Code Annotated 62-13-302 also states that cash rebates, cash gifts, and cash prizes offered in conjunction with any real estate transaction are expressly prohibited. Black's Law Dictionary defines rebate as 1, a return of a payment serving as a discount or reduction, or 2, an amount of money that is paid back when someone has overpaid. Council believes respondents' advertisement may constitute a violation of 62-13-302, but research shows that the few cases that cite that particular statute involve the employment of non-licensed brokers. Council also notes that the advertisement is otherwise in compliance with the rule regarding gifts and prizes. At a minimum, council recommends the respondent be assessed a civil penalty for unlicensed activity. My recommendation is for a $500 civil penalty for unlicensed activity with a possible additional penalty to be assessed following the Commission's discussion of Tennessee Code Annotated 62-13-302.
Discussion.
So you're saying it's not a violation of the gifts and prizes rule? 'Cause I'm thinking it is.
It's definitely not a violation of the gifts and prizes rule. Everything that's required in writing, pertinent details under sponsorship of the licensee's firm and broker, those factors were all met. It's the statute that says no cash rebates, prizes, or gifts that I'm concerned about. But again, I did some case law research on that to see, how is this statute used? And there were only a handful of cases, maybe 6. And in each of them, that statute was used when a licensee had employed a non-licensee to act as a broker.
Such as the other case.
Right. So that statute hasn't really been used in situations like what we're looking at here. So, I'm really just not sure. I would like you all to discuss.
How is this? How is it different than a broker who says, I will work for 5% instead of 6%? Because isn't it just a reduction in their fee?
Well, what we have here is it's not a broker. This is just, the advertisement was for a $1,000 credit that could be applied towards the buyer's escrow if they closed with that, with the respondent.
Buyer specifically? Could be applied toward a seller?
I think it could, yes, it can apply towards sellers.
I'd like to make a thing. I recommend a $1,000 civil penalty for unlicensed activity and $500 for the Tennessee Code 6.
Second.
So, just my quick reaction to that is, if you think they're unlicensed and the code doesn't apply to them, TCA doesn't apply. So I don't know.
Did they
There's
reinstate?
two separate issues. There was a brief period of time when the complaint was filed where they were unlicensed. They got the complaint, they called commission staff, got it taken care of. So they're licensed now, but yes, like Commissioner Frank said, there was a lapse. The other issue is the advertisement. And that's where I need you all to come in and determine whether or not that is in fact a violation of 302.
And did we confirm that class was taken?
At the their license was reinstated. I didn't personally review it myself.
How long was the lapse?
A lapse in them taking the class?
Their license lapse.
If they were reinstated, then Amanda most likely confirmed with me that they had, but let's see.
I'm thinking 1 or 2 days is one thing, but 1 or 2 months is a little different.
Talk about the other part while she's looking that up. To me, that's definitely a cash rebate.
It is. I mean, and the answer also, we can discount commissions. I say your broker can't. It's your broker's money. It's not the agent's money.
Right.
Broker can discount it, but what's not permitted in our state are rebates, cash rebates.
To be used
anything
as an inducement.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, I guess my thought is it's a $1,000 credit towards escrow upon closing. We don't have any specific case here where they used it to rebate a buyer. I mean, it could be just cutting their commission for listing a house by $1,000.
They didn't give them cash.
They did,
Right.
because it went towards closing costs.
It's a gift certificate that could only be redeemed for
closing.
business with
Put
this
that way.
respondent. They couldn't take, it's not like a Visa gift card that they could spend wherever they wanted to.
It's $1,000 they didn't have to bring to the closing.
Guess so. Or they
Which is
did, and then
cash.
they get it back, I don't know.
I think it's walking like a duck and quacking like a duck. I think it's a duck. So I think it's a rebate.
Do we have a specific case where they actually rebated someone $1,000?
They
They're
actually
offering it.
did or not, they offered it.
But we don't know if what they are offering is $1,000 credit towards listing the house.
It said credit to
Closing.
Says escrow upon
escrow
closing.
closing, yeah.
Okay, well, part of that is
That's
they
when
receive the agents or the brokers receive the commission at closing. It could be $1,000 off of that at closing. I'm just saying, I don't think
So the broker wouldn't receive it, it's the client.
I remember
And-
when that bill went through.
In my
very
opinion,
Specifically for a particular reason, and it means that so.
The rest
It went, who had to go through the, well, I won't even say it on mic, but, it's clear-cut inducement.
All right, I have a motion for $1,000 and $500, but I don't have a second.
Second.
Okay.
Can we, I'd like to ask the question be divided.
Okay.
We'll handle each part of that separately.
Okay. So you want to handle the civil penalty for unlicensed
Okay.
activity first?
It's you're running this place.
Okay.
You tell me
And
what
the
happened.
lapse in licensure was from July to November.
All right, so we're going to separate these two. So the civil penalty for unlicensed activity, that was $1,000, Ms. Taylor? And Ms. Hills, do you second that?
Yes, second.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Ms. Taylor and second by Ms. Hills, $1,000 for unlicensed activity. Any discussion on that? The lapse was from July to November. All right, we're going to vote. All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
no.
All right, that is 6 to 1. Motion carries. Okay, and then the second part, who has a motion?
I made the motion for $500.
You want to change it to 1,000 to match what they're
I will
offering?
happy to change it to 1,000.
And for what's the,
Well, it's the same rule, 6213-302. It's for the cash credit. They offered $1,000 credit towards escrow upon closing.
I'll second it if we already don't have one.
all right, any discussion? Okay, we'll take a vote on this. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
I'll vote no.
Did you vote? I voted no. Okay, so we have three. I vote yes. All right, so it's 4 to 3. I like that power. Okay, so the motion carries 4 to 3. All right, next one is Mr. McCarthy, number 7.
Case number 2018-072901. This is a case of unlicensed activity. The property owner is in Washington State and relied upon a Memphis-based property manager to manage no less than 4 properties. The complainant discovered that excessive security deposits for damages were being held by the respondent. In addition, there were renters in the properties that were never made known to the complainant. This activity occurred since May 3rd, 2017, up until the property manager was terminated on September 15th, 2018. The Commission has the power to impose a fine for each day of unlicensed activity. Council is requesting that a civil penalty in the amount of $4,000 for engaging in unlicensed activity for the 4 properties. Pending your questions.
Motion to accept council's recommendation.
Second.
Any discussion?
Was this a broker or an affiliate broker?
Unlicensed.
Completely unlicensed.
Oh, excuse me.
Unlicensed.
Well, I just guess I wasn't paying attention.
Okay, so that is $4,000.
They also get a cease and desist thing when this comes to them. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You can add the cease and desist to it. All right. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
So, just for the record, we don't need to know it's Memphis or Knoxville. Just the less we know geographically, the better. Because Rick thinks we're prejudiced against Memphis people.
And honestly, he, her, anything that would give us any kind of prejudice at all, we'd like to leave as much of that out as we could. Okay, Mr. McCarthy, number 8.
Case number 2018-07-4211. The complainant had a signed listing agreement for the seller's property. And the day that the property sold, the buyer's agent started making advertisements to flip the property. The property still had not closed. It was simply the sales contract. Now, the respondent hung their hat on the argument that they didn't market to the public. But the fact is that the complainant found out about these color advertisements with pictures and descriptions offering to sell the property, even though the property had not closed. There was no listing agreement signed with the buyer. There was no assignment signed by the buyer. Council is recommending a $500 civil penalty for violation of Rule 1260-02-123, subsection E.
And what is that? What is that?
No licensee shall advertise a property listed by another licensee without written authorization from the property owner.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion?
What's the maximum penalty we could impose?
It's $1,000, isn't it?
Is it $1,000?
Maximum on anything, isn't it? $1,000 per occasion.
I move
Per
for
day.
I move for a $1,000 civil penalty.
Second your motion.
All right. So, discussion?
This complaint's filed against the real estate firm. Are there any companion complaints with this?
Not that I'm aware of, but I only have half of the cases.
It would seem to me if I was filing a complaint, I'd go against this company and an individual, and I'm just curious if that's the case.
Well, and the general public might not know that.
I agree. That's why I was asking. Let's vote.
Okay. The motion's by Mr. McMullen and seconded by Ms. Taylor. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Number 9.
Number 9, that this is a case about a potentially misleading advertisement. Our complainant was the potential buyer, went out and paid for a home inspection, and it wasn't the seller's agent that notified the potential buyer that there was only 3 bedrooms. It was the home inspector. Clearly, there was no second means of egress for a room that this respondent was claiming was a bedroom. The complaint also alleged that a readily visible leak that was open, apparent to everybody, was not disclosed. Our respondent did respond and stated that they were unaware of the leak, and in addition, that the client homeowner had inherited the property from their deceased mother. In this case, counsel is recommending a $500 civil penalty for failing to exercise reasonable skill and care to all parties in listing the 4th bedroom when the room had no exterior egress. This would be a violation of Tennessee Code 6213-403, subsection 1.
Has no exterior egress that you had to walk through another room to get out?
It would be a room that, it would be like a closet, ma'am.
A
No
window.
windows, no doors.
Did it have a window and the window just didn't open? Because that would be considered no egress either if it has a window, but it's not a,
The
it's a
facts that
stationary
we
one.
have is that there's simply no second means of egress whatsoever.
Well, but now, years ago, Mr. Wendell Alexander was here. I see him sitting right there. And I said, well, if it doesn't have windows, if it doesn't have doors, then code tells us that's not a bedroom. And in his county, they had no codes. And he said, because we don't know what county. Do we know what county? Did you write that? You did not. Okay, since we don't know that, then we don't know what the codes are in that area.
Did that room have a closet, though? That you'd know, did it have a closet?
That we don't know, ma'am.
Well,
But there's no codes, you don't even have to have a closet.
well, but I think to get a loan on it.
Certain lines.
Yeah, certain lines.
I guess what we're saying is sometimes in different areas, a bedroom and what constitutes a bedroom and not can have its own interpretation depending on where the property is. And I found
your
that
bill.
too.
But the neutral party, the home inspector, is the one.
So the buyer was probably going to use it as a bedroom, but then when the home inspector said that, they probably thought it should be less.
So it didn't close? Did not close?
This buyer, after spending all the time and even paying for home inspection, did not close on the property. You have a dissatisfied potential buyer that feels that they were misled by a licensee by failing
Did
to
they have a licensee? Were they represented?
find out, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion that we dismiss.
Second.
I was pointing over there to the window. Oh, excuse me. Okay, so Mr. Douglas made a motion. Is there a second?
Yes.
Second. Austin, and what is the motion?
Dismiss.
Okay, motion is to dismiss. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
I just have a question. So this was against the listing agent, not against the buyer's agent, correct? Okay. Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Okay, that's 6-4-1 against. Motion carries. All right, number 9. Oh, that was number 9. But I did want to say this. I appreciated so much this down here about advertising at the bottom.
I did too.
They may have 2 more.
Can we pause just for 1 second? Can you read in number 9, the number?
2018-07-4561. We have 2 more cases on the addendum. Sir, we have 2 more cases on the addendum. Case number 12.
On the iPads.
Oh, no, we are.
I don't have it.
You don't have it.
I have an iPad, and I don't know how to use it. But
Case number 12.
I believe.
is it a separate?
It didn't.
7A.
It didn't go on. It said updated, but
I think it's 7A.
It says March addendum.
Uh-huh.
Mine came
Oh,
up.
I got it.
I had
got it.
final legal report.
Keith
final.
McCarthy.
Oh, wait a minute.
Here, John, you can.
Fine.
Okay.
That one.
First case is 2018-07-0261. This case alleges misrepresentation in the sale of timeshare/vacation club purchase. This case is nearly identical to a case that was dismissed in July by the Commission. That case was dismissed due to the statute of limitations. This case was timely received. I've only been working for this Commission on cases for 3 weeks. We have 4 cases right now against the respondent. This
firm, not a person, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
This complainant paid over $13,000 to get timeshare vacation club points, ended up getting a timeshare that was actually in Arizona. And at the end of the day, the complaint substance is that people could book hotel rooms on their own for far less than it would cost to pay this $13,000 service. Complainant was represented aptly by an attorney. The complainants are from Florida, went to Michigan on vacation, saw an ad for this Tennessee-based offer. And they went to Tennessee where they were given this 5-hour sales pitch. One example is that it would cost $250 to convert their points, something they already paid the $13,000 for, to simply get one night at a hotel. Now, that same hotel cost $189 a night. Council recommends that you refer this case to the Division of Consumer Affairs, where the Division of Consumer Affairs can offer to mediate this case. The Division of Consumer Affairs also has the authority to refer cases to the Attorney General's office for investigation. I'm also the attorney and counsel for the Division of Consumer Affairs, and counsel recommends this course of action.
Motion to accept council's recommendation. Then I have a question.
What's the alleged violation?
One potential avenue certainly would be improper or dishonest dealings.
Oh, and so sending that on, they would have jurisdiction over the license, or after their finding, they may send it back to us?
The case that the Commission dismissed in July fairly made the complainant whole. The respondent issued a letter stating that derogatory information on credit reporting should be deleted. They also submitted an offer to release the complainant from the contract. Now, that case was different. That case started out with the Division of Consumer Affairs, and we didn't get that case until March of last year. So that was the result in that one case.
So did they sign, were all the proper signatures for the transaction? The complainant signed everything?
Yes, ma'am. And purchasers have a 10-day window in which to terminate these. None of these cases were terminated within 10 days. And we did not receive documents about the offers from the respondent, but we did see a written response denying the allegations. One thing I would want to see would be the written offer material. That may be available in these other cases we have, but not in this one.
What I'd like to know is, for $13,000, did they buy points?
Sir.
They didn't buy real estate?
They ended up getting the actual timeshare in Arizona, but they were given 5 or 10,000 points. They alleged that they would get additional 5,000 points, promised they would get the additional 5,000 points. They were never given those. They were also promised that if they paid $250, it would somehow turn into 20,000 points. And that 20,000 points wasn't even enough to book a $189 room hotel for one evening.
That's why I like your recommendation, because I struggle thinking this is a real estate commission issue. I like consumer affairs much better. If we don't already have a motion.
Yes, we do.
By Hills and Douglas.
I'm going to vote for the motion. That's what I want to say.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Number 13.
This is another unlicensed case. The complainant was a former tenant. The complainant alleges that the respondent failed to do their job as a property manager, that the complainant was wrongfully evicted, and that they're no longer allowed on the premises. The respondent did submit a very detailed, thorough, and timelined response. The respondent stated that the complainant has threatened their property manager, an additional tenant, and that the complainant was arrested on the property. The respondent also provided lease termination documents, which contain respondent's name on the top center, and the document is entitled Notice of Lease Termination. This lease termination was dated in August of 2018. Council is recommending a civil penalty for engaging in unlicensed activity.
So this was a property management case that was a person who was not licensed to do property management.
Correct.
Okay.
You didn't read the number, though.
And this is case 2018-06-8101.
Move for a civil penalty of $1,000 for unlicensed activity.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? Motion made by Mr. McMullen and seconded by Ms. Hills for a $1,000 penalty. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, back to you.
All right, legal, what else do you have? Anything? All right, thank you both. Thanks, Kevin. Glad you're with us. So we're on commission discussions. And the only item I have listed has to do with the October meeting. We can add others if you'd like. At this point, we've had Gatlinburg suggest that they would like to host the meeting. I would like to let you know that the town of Farragut, let's put it this way, the town of Farragut's meeting room is available those days as well. And I'm not sure we have to make a decision even today, but if there are different entities or areas or cities that want to host us in October, we need to make a decision in the next 30 to 60 days.
So we've had two offers then.
Yeah, there are two possibilities at this point. There may be others. I just want to mention that. I know Fontaine's been working hard to make sure the May meeting goes without a hitch. Without a hitch.
You found the hotel, right?
Yes, yeah.
Secret.
It's a look. No, I'm just kidding. No, I have been back and forth, but I believe I'll be able to get it finalized today because they sent over an official quote. But it's the Marriott that's off of I-240. That should be pretty convenient to the meeting location, and Fontaine is set up that we'll be meeting at the Germantown City Hall. And so I've spoken to them as well. And so we have everything squared away for that portion as well.
Okay, perfect.
Fontaine has set that up.
So do we have someone in Gatlinburg? Was it like their board of realtors or?
Yes, yeah. Their association there reached out and extended the invitation for the commission to have the October meeting there.
So I think if we're going to do that, then we need to get on it because hotel rooms in October in Gatlinburg.
Just driving down the road in October in Gatlinburg.
Well, I don't.
On a trip.
What I don't know is that do they say they have a facility, or they just like the idea of us coming? That's what we need to know.
It's been a minute since I received that email, but I believe they just. All the details I received was that they invited the commission to host their October meeting.
Maybe we need to wait till next month's meeting, but try and get it finalized by then to see what, because if the hotel rooms may be too expensive, may not be able to get hotel rooms at this point.
Maybe I'll be able to get from the hotel room too.
All right, just something to think about. Any other business to come before the commission? Ms. Taylor? Anything you want to say? I know you're busy with.
No, I had to read that thing.
I'm not being critical.
I was listening.
I know you
See,
were.
I picked up on you. Right? No, it was a nice meeting, and I'm glad it was short, too.
Thank you. Mr. Douglas?
Enjoy the meeting. Hope everyone travels home safely. Look forward to seeing you next month.
All right, Bobby?
Nothing good.
Diane?
I wish you well the first of the month.
Thank you. Austin?
Nothing to add.
Marcia?
I'd like to know who these ladies are back here that have been so diligently listening. And where are you all from?
Clarksville, Tennessee.
Okay, are you all together or?
Yeah, we're trying to expand our educational opportunities so that we.
Well, we appreciate you being here, and I'm happy for you. It was a short day, so thank you for being here.
And you get 8 hours continuing education.
Yeah.
All right. A couple of things. So it's been a busy time for our staff, especially with E&O insurance and the issues that come with it. So thanks to you, Caitlin, to your staff, to Aaron. Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron.
Appreciate you. Second of all, Our friend Gary Bloom is having a shoulder replaced or something close to that on April 4th, so keep him in mind. Might want to, after April 4th, check with him, see how he's doing, or send him a card. And finally, the best time to leave downtown Nashville is in the next 10 minutes or so. So I say we're adjourned.
Adios.
Have a good evening.